other, which is resulting to overgrowth of the area. And because of all that, the population of Triturus carnifex is small, is isolated, and is therefore threatened. And what can we do, or what are we trying to do to prevent that? So supportive breeding is one important and valuable measure that we do to reestablish a population there. So we are collecting the plants with eggs of Triturus, and we bring them to our breeding station. And so the larvae hatched there are safe from predation and safe from donor water bodies to dry up. And then when the larvae grow, we release them back into the nature, so to IUCN. And in the past 2 years, we released 307 larvae, and the breeding is still going on in this year. It's the last year of the breeding. And of course, the aim is to increase the population size to the extent that we'll manage to live, to make it on their own in the future. And to that, we also do some habitat improvement, and we established 10 new ponds, and we are managing the surrounding terrestrial habitats to restore the wet meadows. And with annual monitoring, we assess the status and the growth of the population and the colonization of the new ponds. And we are really glad that our ponds are maintaining water throughout the year, and that the colonization of those ponds is rather quick. And we managed to exceed the foreseen number of released animals, of released newts. And we are even more glad that we recaptured one of our specimens, one of our animals, and we hope that those reunions will become more and more often in the future years of monitoring. And yeah, just to give you, to sum up, so the breeding is just the initial boost in reinforcing the population, and together with habitat improvement, this can help strengthen the population in the long run before it's too late. So thank you.
Thank you, Anya. Okay, and now it's Erin. Okay, and she's going to talk about landscape recovery in southern England. Erin.
Hiya, so Erin McDonald, working with Amphibian and Reptile Conservation UK, and we are going to talk briefly about landscape recovery for herpetofauna in southern England. So we at Amphibian and Reptile Conservation Trust are carrying out a number of landscape-scale nature recovery projects in southern England. Two of the projects that I'm going to mention today are intending to improve herpetofauna recovery largely through habitat creation, restoration, and management through engagement with landowners, managers, and users. The first project, titled Heathlands Connections, seeks to join up the heathland landscape across an area of natural beauty in Surrey. This project uses smooth snake, sand lizard, adder, and natterjack toad as key species to pilot the objective setting and developing conservation actions for other taxa by linking favorable conservation status for the species and the associated habitats. The second project, titled Renew Nature in the New Forest, is looking to create and restore key habitats to increase biodiversity in the fringes of the New Forest National Park. This area is a hotspot for herpetofauna and supports key populations of smooth snake, sand lizards, adders, common frogs, and grey-crested newts. Through the Heathland Connections project, favorable conservation status definitions will be defined for the 4 target species. These definitions will be used to set monitoring and action plans to help guide species recovery and landscape recovery. The favorable extent for the habitat for the species will identify key areas where the fragmented heathland should be linked to expand the priority habitat and connect the herpetofauna populations. Through Renew Nature in the New Forest, the project seeks to create and enhance up to 300 hectares of heathland, grassland, woodland, wetland, and hedgerows through capital works. And this will help connect the fragmented landscape and create pathways for species. This will result in creating new or larger metapopulations of herpetofauna and allow for greater resilience and increased abundance for these declining populations. Both projects are trialing landscape nature recovery through habitat creation and restoration and engagement with landowners by using favorable conservation status definitions to guide species targets. While these projects are ongoing, using habitat creation and restoration are proving to be key aspects of landscape-scale nature recovery. Using learnings from previous projects, we have identified a need to create a formula of sorts for landscape recovery. And this will provide a key output where it's a resource where landowners can find guidance how to manage their land for herpetofauna to help connect the surrounding populations. By linking the fragmented landscape, we can increase the species abundance, genetic diversity, and resilience to climate change while progressing the species towards favorable conservation status. So amphibian and reptile conservation does not stop at administrative boundaries, and therefore landscape-level nature recovery is crucial to connect the fragmented landscape. Using favorable conservation status definitions at a landscape scale used to help guide habitat creation, restoration, and management creates a join-up of active on-the-ground management and high-level conservation planning. Thank you, and if you want to talk to more, come to see me.
So next we've got Eugenia to talk about Conceptu Maris.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Yes, my name is Eugenia Pasanisi from the Italian Institute for Environmental Protection and Research, and I will take you to a totally different environment, which is the marine environment for the protection of sea turtles and also cetaceans in the Mediterranean Sea. So there are 3 species of sea turtles in the Mediterranean Sea, but despite the research effort, there are still some information gaps about the spatial distribution of these species because they move especially in offshore areas and which are very difficult to survey. So there are still information gaps that we want to fill with this project by collecting visual data, by using ferries as cost-effective and sustainable platform for collecting visual data on these species in different areas of the Mediterranean Sea and across all different seasons. So we integrated this data collection also with the collection of the potential threats for the species, such as the presence of marine litter and the presence of the maritime traffic, and also with innovative techniques such as the environmental DNA extraction from water samples and isotopes analysis. So the final aim is to set an international approach for the surveillance of the species and also assess the coherence of the measures already in place and verify that they meet the conservation needs for the species. In terms of climate change, the project started in 2022 and will end in 2026, so it's still ongoing. But in terms of climate change, it already provided a very large data set with more than 3,000 sea turtle sightings in offshore waters, and this data already gave a sign of a latitudinal shift towards northern areas, and also provided a baseline of seasonal pattern, which will be very useful for verifying future, for future comparison to verify the effect of climate changes. And in terms of policy, the project also contributed by identifying some of the main potential important areas for the species, and also the areas and the season where to focus on for mitigating the marine litter threat. But particularly during all the phases of the project, we engaged with multiple stakeholders, from the maritime sector to the scientific communities and green and blue economy. So we expect that at the end of the project, we will have shared solution to improve the mitigation strategies, and also data important for the indication of the Natura 2000 offshore important areas, and also data for the species assessment under the Habitat and Marine Strategy Framework Directive. So key messages we would like to share with other projects is that continuous long-term data collection is particularly needed when we want to test the effect of climate change-related effect, and that an international coordination is essential in case of such large-ranging animals. That engage with multiple stakeholders is crucial if you want to make a project deliverable effective, and that the data collection tools provided by the project need to be cost effective and sustainable to facilitate the implementation also in other areas and contexts, even outside the Mediterranean Sea. So thank you.
Thanks, Eugenia. I, for one, am very pleased to hear of eDNA techniques being used in the marine environment. And now it's Carsten from Life Clima Bombina. Great picture.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we're going to Denmark, where our main project site is situated. We also have a partner in Germany, Northern Germany, Stifter Naturschutz Schleswig-Holstein, and they are working in 2 project sites. Okay, our main objectives is to create new habitats for Bombina bombina, other amphibians and birds to counteract problems from climate change in coastal areas in Denmark and Northern Germany. And the main project site in Denmark is what you see on the picture there. Beautiful site, Knudshoved Odde, very Danish name. It's a very important, it's a kind of biodiversity hotspot for amphibians and reptiles in Denmark. It's a habitat for 17 out of the 19 species we have in Denmark, so we are very happy that we could carry out this project in this area. Okay, some of our project results, we have been working since 2019 and we are finishing this year. We have converted 180 hectares of farmland to permanent nature. We have made a total connectivity in this landscape and restored it on 400 hectares. We have doing a lot of natural hydrology, which you can see on the picture. We have established about 40 climate-resilient ponds with a total size of 55 hectares. We have restored land habitats with flowers and stones and bushes and hibernation areas. We have also been doing a supplementary breeding program for 4 amphibians and 1 reptile. And then we have established long-term conservation grazing with all-year grazing with Exmoor horses and Galloway cattle. And key messages from us, it's very important to restore nature's infrastructure on as large landscape scale as possible. It's important to act before amphibians and reptile populations get too small, and if necessary, breeding programs can help. It's also important to restore landscape features, natural hydrology, of course, with a variation in ponds, but also dry grasslands and reintroduce stones and bushes to the landscape. It's also important to remember the long-term sustainability by securing conservation grazing with all-year grazers. And of course, it's also important to have a good relationship with the landowners and attractive financial opportunities to convert farmland to nature. And tomorrow you can see about 40 more slides in the workshop program. Group, yes, group, yeah. Mm. Okay, that's it.
Thanks, Carsten.
Oh, another lovely picture, and this is Jonas from N2K Revisited.
So, good afternoon. My name is Jonas Geiger from the Nature Conservation Agency of the Czech Republic, and I'm to introduce the LIFE IP, the integrated project Natura 2000 Revisited, or One Nature as we go by. It's more easy to double. So the main objectives of the project are the full implementation of adaptive management framework within the Natura 2000 network, also the direct action to support the species and habitats, the involvement of key stakeholders to communicate and participate in the process, and the evaluation of ecosystem services and conservation cost to explain and carry the value of the biodiversity. Last but not least, we also include the dissemination of results and good practice, such as now all these steps are designed to work together to the main objective, which is the improvement of the status of the species listed on the Annex 2 of the Habitats Directive and the Annex 1 of the Birds Directive. So improve the status of the Natura 2000 network in Czechia. Our main scope, our main area is the all of territory of Czech Republic, all the 1,112 sites, and all the target features, all the species and habitats. So not only the amphibians and reptiles, but also those, so all 6 species you can encounter in Czechia. Oh, I forgot about this lovely design I put on. So the theory about behind adaptive management is that we go planning and executing the management actions in cycles, and within each cycle we learn from the mistakes or the shortcomings from the previous period. So at the very start we evaluate the condition of the species or habitat at each different site. We look at the threats and pressures that affect the species and may be responsible for the unfavorable or bad status, and based on the evaluation we then implement the management actions in favor of the species, altogether serving towards the common goal of either carrying the good job we have been doing for past years or achieving the favorable status and improving the condition. To get to this goal, we developed a new framework, a new IT toolbox, say, for the site managers, which are responsible for the management actions and planning. And these are generally centered about the data integration and making the data available to the site managers, but they also include tools such as the guidelines to communication with stakeholders, which you can download in English on this QR code. Or visit my poster today or tomorrow to find out more. Oh, tomorrow, sorry. So some of the highlights and issues and lessons learned, or which we learned under the process, is to start with the highlight that the adaptive management toolbox is in place and working, and at least some of the site managers are using it to look into the species condition and improve it. The issue was, and is, that implementing systemic change, like in our case, takes a lot of resources and often will face opposition, and to tackle this, it's crucial to define the individual steps without the implementation and to communicate them well. My key messages are that the implementation of adaptive management requires tools, and it's crucial to provide these tools within the project. Also, the tools are very helpful, good for providing the sustainability of project in long term. It's also crucial to monitor the results, and that the results are based on detailed data to empower the site managers. It is important to involve all the key stakeholders and to know how to communicate the actions to them, and to inform about the benefits associated with species conservation. That's a step that helps hugely with the previous point, with the involvement of key stakeholders. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Jonas. Excellent. Okay, yeah, Leonardo, can you just come to the podium, and can we have the next 4 speakers all the way through to, who we got next? Marco? Yep.
Okay.
Get yourselves in order. But Leonardo,
Thank you.
Off we go.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to show you something about my project, EOLIZARD. The acronym stands for Aeolian Islands and a lizard. Indeed, the project is implemented in Sicily, in Aeolian archipelago that consists in 7 main islands and several islets. The target species is likely the most threatened reptiles in Europe, because it remains in 4 populations distributed in 3 tiny islets and 1 small promontory. Just to be clear, all islets are less than a football field, and if I remember well from the welcome meeting, this project was in the 2022 call, and I think it was the only live proposal funded on herpetofauna in that call. To be consistent with Teresa review in the data of how few are the projects on amphibians and reptiles. Is listed critically endangered by IUCN because of the limited distribution and because there are main threats that still threaten the species. The main one is the presence of the invasive alien lizard. It's a congeneric, is the Italian wall lizard that is widespread in all the 7 main islands and several islets. Local threat are represented also by black rats and unsuitable habitats. So the main objective of the project are to build a sanctuary, and we selected 2 small islets. Unfortunately, all the suitable islets to build the sanctuary are already colonized by the invasive Italian wall lizard. So the first action is to translocate all the invasive lizard from the islets to a main island to prepare the sanctuary for the reintroduction of the target lizard, the Aeolian wall lizard. So we intended to reproduce in captivity the species and then reintroduce it in the sanctuary. Other actions are at local scale and is the eradication of black rats on the one of the site and the habitat restoration to make it suitable for the lizard. And for the expected impacts, I have no results yet because the project has just started this year. The main impact we expect to reach is a bit ambitious because we expect to increase the whole range of the species by 320% as well as the population size by 300%. And also there will be a reduction in the area occupied by alien species, both the Italian wall lizard and black rat, and an increasing on environmental suitability following the habitat restoration. For those interested in this topic, I will give a longer talk on the project tomorrow in the working group 2 in the afternoon.
Forgot to change the picture.
Sorry, next we've got Alex, who's going to talk about Ponderful.
Thank you. Welcome everyone. My name is Alex. I'm a postdoc in the University of Vic. And I'm here to talk about Ponderful, which is about pond ecosystems for resilient future landscapes in changing climate. So Ponderful is a European project that involves 7 participating countries in Europe plus Uruguay in South America. And its main objective is to understand the interactions between pond biodiversity, ecosystem services, and climate change, and to provide data to make more and a better use of ponds and pondscapes as nature-based solutions. Pondscape is just the matrix of ponds and the terrestrial surrounding matrix. And in particular for amphibians, the main objective is to assess the contribution of multiple pond characteristics to amphibian species richness across Europe. So, from Ponderful, we learned that ponds are really important and they're really abundant, but they are on one side highly threatened, and on the other, they are rarely considered in management and policies. And thus, there is a current need to adapt ponds and pondscapes to multiple climate, land use, and policy context. This could be done using ponds as nature-based solutions to benefit both biodiversity and people. And the lessons learned from this project is that there is a need to co-develop international pond management scenarios, and we need to provide management tools to both local practitioners and decision makers to implement these ponds as nature-based solutions.
particularly with amphibians. Despite the deep knowledge that we have about amphibians and ponds, which is currently increasing, there is still a lack of understanding about which particular pond characteristics contribute to amphibian biodiversity. And to try to answer this question, what we did was to sample over 200 ponds across the 7 European participating countries. And on one hand, we characterized the amphibian species present in these ponds using eDNA metabarcoding. And on the other hand, we characterized a pretty big array of pond characteristics. And using all this information, we performed boosted regression trees, which is a machine learning process that allows to quantify the relative contribution of one of these pond characteristics to amphibian species richness. What we observed with these results is that local pond characteristics are the most important group of characteristics for pond amphibians, and that eutrophication is especially threatening, and thus management should focus on reducing the input of nutrient load in ponds. We also observed that intermediate-sized ponds are the ones that hold a highest amphibian species richness, and this is because deeper ponds tend to harbor more predators, mainly fish, and shallower ponds tend to desiccate too fast for amphibians to reproduce. And we also observed that maintaining pond vegetation can promote amphibian species richness. And we also want to highlight the use of eDNA as a useful tool for amphibian monitoring. So the key message to share is that ponds are nature-based solutions with a huge potential for global change mitigation, and that management of local pond characteristics is key for amphibian conservation, at least at the European scale. Particularly reducing nutrient load and maintaining ponds intermediate size, fishless, with vegetation are key management actions for amphibian conservation. And if you're interested in more, you can also follow the Biodiversa Plus project transponder, in which we will develop standardized protocols to monitor amphibians. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex, very much. Okay, and next up is Milo, and he's going to talk to us about Trinco Biosource.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I tell you something about this closed project. We are in Italy, and the project aims to implement biodiversity in Ticino River Park. As you can see in the picture on the right, Ticino River is an important ecological corridor between Alps and the rest of Italy. We wanted to conserve 17 species of fish, butterflies, birds, and of course amphibians. In amphibians, we had 3 target species: Italian agile frog, Rana dalmatiana, the agile frog, Rana dalmatina, and the Italian tree frog, Ila intermedia, that you can see below. The main results are the creation and the restoration of wetland habitats. We create some new ponds and other wetlands. On the right, you can see a sort of jellyfish that is a new pond that we created. Other results are the management of lowland wet meadows that we call marchite, because of is a traditional technique to manage this habitat. And then also is important the engagement of farmers to manage this marchite, and also to sensibilize schools. Of course, we increase population of the 3 target species, and it's also necessary to say the awareness of the issues of invasive alien species. These are some pictures of new wetland. On the left, the famous jellyfish pond with tadpole of Rana dalmatiana, while on the right, a new marchita with egg deposition of Ila intermedia. For our experience, we must it's better to do many intervention, also little intervention in many areas. rather than only one or two interventions in only one area. We must pay attention to invasive species like Louisiana crowfish and, of course, Trachemys scripta, because when we create some new ponds, amphibians arrive, but also these bloody species arrive too. And we also have to consider for future project to mitigate climate change effects in our new wetlands. We have a poster tomorrow about this project, so if you have some question, please stress me tomorrow. Thank you.
Okay, can we welcome Marie from the Life in Salt Marshes?
Good afternoon to everybody. I'm Marie and I work at Masaryk University in Czech Republic. Our project, Life in Salt Marshes, is focused on complex ecological restoration of degraded and disappearing salt marshes in Moravian Pannonia. Our project is focused on improving of current state of the South Moravian agricultural landscape, because this landscape is suffering from the loss of biodiversity, reduced water retention capacity, and also a really poor water quality. So we work at 10 sites in South Moravia, and we focused on 6 target species, which 3 of them are amphibians. Especially these amphibian species are really suffering from wetland degradation that is caused by many different factors. The most important from them are absence of management that is leading to overgrowth by different expansive and invasive plant species. The next reason for wetland degradation is a really high eutrophication because of communal pollution via nitrogen, phosphorus, and so on. The next problem is bad water regime. It's a thing that is connected with many of our localities, and the very large problem is no cooperation with stakeholders within nature conservation, and also really insufficient work with public. These problems, these factors leads to insufficient protection and loss of biodiversity and the really large degradation of ecosystem services. So what exactly are we doing during our LIFE project? We are replicating so-called success story from Krumvířský wetland. At this site, we make some revitalization from the year 2020, and this revitalization is based on a cooperation with different stakeholders, including village municipalities, including farmers and other landowners. Using this approach, we are doing grazing, mowing, sowing of hemiparasitic plants, and in this example of good practice, we are doing some lectures, excursions, workshops, and so on. However, in our LIFE project, new challenges and risks keep coming again and again. All of you know it. And we are fighting again establishment management, and at the Natura 2000 sites, we fight with industrial pollution, waste deposition, difficult ownership relation, and so on. But we recognize that many threats and risks are associated with stakeholders. There are, for example, many interests in project areas, sometimes misunderstanding of the meaning of measures, why and how to protect nature, and is really misunderstanding for the public. And next problem is controversial effect of some projects that are planned and Natura 2000 sites within the project of third parties. So ecological restoration is a really challenge, and if I could to share with you some key messages, so it will be this one. restoration is not only about management, it's also about cooperation with stakeholders and about involving local experts and other entities that are working at your sites. Don't forget about cooperation with public and with volunteers. It's really great and helpful to include them. And if you want, I will be happy if you could join the discussion in working group 3 tomorrow, IRC and lunch management. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. Excellent. I've just got to say, I love the thought of, like, you know, reptile man or whatever he was in the corner of your picture there. Great graphic. Okay, and our final one in this group is Marco Zuffi, the big one in the middle. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. And this is Life. Which one is this one? Proemis. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Am I in the wrong one?
Oh, what's happened?
No.
Sorry.
No.
No.
Okay, go back.
Go back.
Technical issue. Hang on.
Go back. Come on, Zuffi. Okay, we are closing. Okay.
There we go.
It's enough. Okay.
And you've got a sneak preview of the next project.
Okay, now the acronym means Urgent Conservation Action Proemis Orbicularis, because there is a first time we, at least in Italy, found the opportunity to cover all the national area of distribution of Emis orbicularis, with the exception of Sardinia, because the situation was quite good. Obviously, our idea was to, according to several scopes and aims, finding all the places in which Emis orbicularis living in Natura 2000 areas suffer of the presence and maybe of competition with Trachemis and other exotic species. And so, with the cooperation with 2 Slovenian partners, we organized the project. And here there are the results we obtained during the task 2 and 3 of the last year. So we started with a kickoff meeting in 2022, and the last year we started with the first year of the project. And we had the, obviously, opportunity to training a lot of volunteers and operators of the several natural areas, and monitoring Emis orbicularis population in 47 places was necessary to understand the density and the presence or absence of past database records that we have for Italian territory in order to move or not to move in eradicating and controlling Trachemis. And at the moment, last year, we captured more than about 1,390 Emis in Italy and 341 in Slovenia, and observed about 1,400 Trachemis all around. And started with a sampling data for assessing the genetic differences among populations of Emis orbicularis in Italy. And as first results, the last first result of last year, the first draft of the integrated management plan, because according to ISPRA and Italian Ministry, probably we can share the project and the plan worldwide, in Europe, according to best practice for the management of the species. Don't worry. Okay. The expected results for the next 4 years are at least release 1,150 Emis orbicularis, deriving from captive breeding centers we have dislocated in Italy, and at least restore 9 hectares of habitats in 30 sites in Italy and some in Slovenia as well. And at least 2,700 Trachemis, probably the number of estimated animals exceed 500,000 or 600,000 animals pairs in Italy, but obviously we focused on Natura 2000 sites. And during the life and afterlife, hope to have an increase of more than 500 individuals of Emis orbicularis all around for Italy. The numbers below are the number of habitat restoration, Emis restocking centers, and the Trachemis control and eradication, and the areas in which we are looking and working on. There are several key messages to share. The most important, I think, is limit the commerce of exotic species. But this is a problem very grave and very bad problem that needs probably an European or national law and legislation, because in Italy we block Tochemis, but we have all the other species. So we think it's a very problem. Obviously, it's fundamental having an engagement of stakeholders, the sustainability of most of interventions, and disseminating results. We hope to reach at least 100,000 children and schoolboys in several projects we have all around Italy, and increase monitoring of invasive alien species, because at the moment we found 31 different freshwater turtles in Italy at the moment, not all reproducing, but not one, 31. And financing maybe ARC in the future. Thank you.
Can we have the next 5 speakers, starting with Loic? Thank you. This is Loic from Belgium for Biodiversity.
Thanks. So you've already seen a presentation, so this should go quite fast. So I'm Loic. I work for the Research Institute for Nature and Forest in Flanders in Belgium. And I'll present our live B4B, Belgium Biodiversity for Belgium, or Belgium for Biodiversity. So this is quite a large live project, a bit comparable to the one that we see in Czech Republic. And the thing that is quite interesting for us here is that we are working on a positive trend for several Natura 2000 species, 2 of which are amphibians. So our common spadefoot toad and our common midwife toad, and we're specifically doing this by translocations. Now, translocations are not really a topic here for this meeting, so I was thinking of invasive species. And especially with our common spadefoot toad, we see that there's quite a lot of new invasive species that are living in the water habitats, in the breeding ponds of our common spadefoot toad areas where we are releasing the species. And we've seen this shift from native fish species towards invasive species. And of course, there's no co-evolution with our native amphibian species. And also there seem to be quite different niches for these new species, fish species, and also the densities are quite remarkable. So we devised an experimental study to look at the impact of these invasive fish species on the amphibians. So on the graph you can see Rana temperaria, common frog, and Pellobatis fuscus, common spadefoot toad. And we placed larvae together with these fish species in a mesocosm study. And what you can see on the y-axis is the larval survival. So you can see for Rana temperaria that our native fish species have an impact, but not all of them are significant. While you can see that 2 out of 3 invasive fish species are having a significant impact. And for Pellobatis fuscus, you can see that all 3 of the invasive fish species are highly problematic. They basically eat everything. So based on these results, we are proposing to management of our water bodies, complete eradication of all fish species within these systems. If you look at land management, so, well, our project is reintroduction. I'm mostly working on reintroduction, but allow me to give you some key messages of problems that that we have faced with land management, especially with regard to translocations. So the habitat of these species is paramount. So you cannot do a translocation without good habitat. And translocation are not a quick fix. It's not like, okay, throw some money at it, breed some animals, and you can have a proper conservation status. No, the quality and especially the quantity of restored habitats will determine the effectiveness of the translocation. So many amphibians and reptiles are poor dispersers. Well, it might be different here in this beautiful country where we still have a lot of amazing connected nature, but in Belgium or in Western Europe, habitat connectivity is a real problem. So also think about that, and especially also for metapopulation functioning, to get all this genetic flow again moving between the subpopulations. And another thing that I've noticed is that we have a limited number of nature areas in Belgium, and we try to fit as many species and goals of habitat as possible into these small areas. And the thing is that for a lot of our native species, the habitats or the key elements within these habitats basically fall outside of these Natura 2000 habitat types. They need these detailed structural aspects in these habitats, which are not always key elements within these Natura 2000 habitats. And also sometimes it's just not feasible to create habitats for all species within a small area. There are, in Belgium, for example, multiple problems between, for example, bird gulls and amphibian gulls. All right, so the take-home message, I guess, here is that translocations are not like one fix for amphibian and reptile conservation. You need a multitude of different factors and stakeholders to make this a success. Thank you.
Thanks, Lewis. Nice, simple take-home message there for us. And next is Martina, who's going to talk to us about the Atlantic German project. Yeah, okay.
Hey, good afternoon. I would like to shortly present to you the Live Integrated Project Atlantic Region.de, or Atlantische Sandlandschaften as it is called in German. The project is a joint project run by both environmental ministries of North Rhine-Westphalia and Lower Saxony. And we, as the regional authority of Münster, where I'm working, are requested to manage and implement the project. So what are the objectives? Both federal states cover about 80% of the Atlantic region in Germany. And the first part of the project is to implement the national PAF. That is, we try to develop a methodological approach for improving the conservation status of all the non-marine habitat types and species in the whole Atlantic region in Germany. And the second part is the implementation of concrete measures in both federal states. There we focus on 15 habitat types and 10 species, because there are too much to work on as a whole. And it's 6 amphibian species are included and 2 reptile species. So a good cover for the ARC platform. So as a concrete example, I would like to introduce measures for the common spade foot, which we worked upon in North Rhine-Westphalia. We had the advantage of following to a previous Life Plus project, which already established the conservation breeding for this species. So we kind of just had to continue with it and try to scale it up from a rather spot working in the Münsterland area to whole of North Rhine-Westphalia. And as mentioned before, it's just running the average optimization habitat type and creation of potential habitat types for this species. We continued the conservation breeding and reintroduction of the species. And of course, we try to create further stepping stone habitats so that it's possible for the species really to reach new area. And the preliminary results are we so far released more than 90,000 individuals, spent about 1.15 million euros, so it's a large amount of money. Currently, we have 59 proven occurrences, which means it's an increase of about 16% in comparison to the period before our project started, but actually more than doubling the number since the project before, so the Life Plus project started. For the coming report on the Habitats Directive, really managed to improve the conservation status from bad to poor, so we managed to change the color. So what are the prospects? Further habitat optimization and creation of habitats will go on, and eventually also some releases. But the exciting part is also our colleagues in Lower Saxony will continue and step on releasing toads in the bordering districts. And we started just cooperation with the Live B4B for breeding and restocking in Flanders. And key messages to share. The advantage of our integrated project was a mixture of top-down and bottom-up approach, which was really good. It needs a continuous effort to scale up from regional or rather focused single spots to larger project areas. Species protection is often more intense on personal than in investment because it's easy to build a pond, but very intensive to monitor and reintroduce. And first results may even just become visible after projects already ended. A lot of time and money is needed, but it's worth the effort.
Next, we've got Daniel from Life Tito Monteseni.
Hello, good afternoon. This is the title of my ephemeral talking. There are the objectives and the results, and we could end here, but not. I have time. I can tell you something else. The Life Triton has aimed to improve the conservation status of this newt and restore its habitat. 5 strategic lines was executed, expand its geographical distribution, increase knowledge, eliminate threats, involve local community, and improve legal coverage. Now I ask you for a little concentration. If you're mastermind kind, that it must suppose yes, I propose you read, watch, listening, and digest all of that at the same time. The music don't work? Oh, shit. Oh, sorry. Well, only 3 things. That is read, watch, and digest. Listening, I hope to have the opportunity later, because no, I have enough, my English is not enough to see. Well, this is the reproductive center where we're breeding this newt to take after the amplexus. We put the eggs out in another aquariums, and when the animals have the age to put marks inside, is ready to liberate in the new areas, in the same Museum Natural Park. This new is totally aquatic, it's like a fish. This is a biosecurity measurements because it's very important. And this is the threats that have in the habitat. We are restoring all the habitat with improving the connectivity, restoring the forest habitat, and cutting the exotic plantations that there are a lot, and it's a relative bomb to get water. And this is the education program that is one of the more strongest results get in this project, to involve all the local people and the education people. And now it's finishing. Okay, I'm sorry for the sound. I'm sorry. And the key message that it's imperative to agree on a sustainable management of natural resources as are water and wood. The compromise of the large team is the engine, and the right coordination and synergies will be the energy to achieve their objectives. Research and monitoring are imperative to execute adaptive management. Without monitoring, we don't learn, we don't improve. Climate change is the challenge, and implementation of the environmental policies is the opportunity. LIFE project is a valuable tool to promote the resilience of our natural heritage. And tomorrow, if Group 4, if you can review your level of your mastermind, if you want, and see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thanks, Daniel. That was lovely. And next up is Alejandra. She's from the Life Divacqua project. Alejandra, we did not able to change your presentation, so just be aware. But for those of you that have not seen the Divacqua exhibition, or you've not noticed it, it is up in the coffee room. Please do take a look at it. The illustrations are amazing. Alejandra.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alejandra Goldenberg, and I'm working in the Environmental Hydraulic Institute of the University of Cantabria, here in Santander. We talk about the Life Divacqua project. DIVAQUA aims at restoring low-tech Atlantic aquatic ecosystems of the Natura 2000 network in the Picos de Europa National Park and surrounded areas that include Sella and the Bacaris basins. There is a multidisciplinary project. We are the associative beneficiary, the University of Cantabria, but we also, our partners are business within the energy sector as Repsol or Altano, also scientific institutions, CSIC, Itagra, and the government of Asturias, Cantabria, and Castilla y León. Our objectives are developing new tools and approaches to improve the characterization, monitoring, assessment, and management of the DIVAQUA species and habitats, reduce the anthropogenic pressure on biological diversity and increasing ecosystem service provisioning, and promote sustainability of all the socioeconomic activities that are going on in the area. And this is to accomplish the main objective of the project, that is to improve the conservation status of the aquatic habitats and species of community interest. Between them, there are fishes as salmon or lamprey, and also amphibians. Regarding the new tools and approaches, we apply environmental DNA for the monitor of key species, also pathogen and invasive species. This was really important to get new and updated cartography of the distribution of these animals in the area, and also what were the preferential habitats of these amphibians. Also, there was a very important work of doing cartography of the lentic habitats in the area. We have a lot of small water bodies that were invisible, so we needed a new cartography with that. And we also do some modeling about the effects of climate change regarding water availability in the area. That is also crucial for the amphibian conservation. Regarding the reducing anthropogenic pressure, we carry out different conservation actions. For amphibians, we learned that cattle drinking troughs were very important in this area for amphibians. So we restore several drinking troughs by a design that we made in the DIVAQUA project. So we assure that there are no desiccation in these drinking troughs, and we also made ramps from the entrance and exits of these animals. Besides this, we also have another conservation actions to improve river connectivity, for example, by removal weirs and dams, and also improving fish passage, also wetland protection, and many others that I don't have time in this speed presentation. And regarding sustainability, we have an extensive communication and dissemination program to engage the local people. And we also are delivering the DIVAQUA guide, conservation guide, trying to standardize and create a network of scientists for the monitor of aquatic mountains ecosystems. So as a key message, we increase the knowledge about the habitat of these species and the distribution, especially amphibians. We reduce risk and threats by restoring habitats for amphibians and other conservation actions. We engage the local population and socioeconomic activities by raising ecological awareness. And as the last message, we found that it's very important to increase our knowledge to manage and protect mountain aquatic ecosystems.
Next, we've got Catherine, who is going to present on MSR.
Yeah, hello everybody. My name is Catherine Theisinger, and together with my colleague Jean-Yves Georges, we want to discuss with you in our workshop 3, round 1, how to bring together people and nature. Oops, next one. So, in the context of the 6th biodiversity crisis, we all know habitat restoration in combination with a threatened species reintroduction is considered a nature-based solution to limit biodiversity erosion. And in Europe, where the wetland surface area has decreased by 90% since the 18th century, the European pond turtle Emys orbicularis has suffered the most severe decline of all reptiles. And therefore, this small-sized freshwater turtle has a wide distribution all across Europe, here shown in grey, and has benefited numerous restoration and reintroduction efforts in several countries, here shown in dark green. However, all these results have so far been poorly disseminated, and therefore our aim in the project is that we want to identify the most ecologically effective but also socially supported actions for wetland restoration in favor of the European pond turtle reintroduction. And we do this based on our long-term monitoring in 3 study sites in France, Germany, and Latvia. There is a recent evidence that nature-human connectedness is the pathway to sustainability, as highlighted in a recent meta-analysis. And the European pond turtle is a good example for a human-nature paradigm. While turtles are usually highly popular amongst people, their natural habitat of wetlands remain largely non-appreciated. And the important ecological role of wetlands, providing numerous ecosystem services, hosting immense biodiversity, and producing major biomass, is largely unrecognized in our society. And therefore, in our project, we want to find out whether EMIS can actually be an emissary for wetlands by reconnecting people and nature. And this is something we would like to discuss with you, and also how the reintroduction of such an umbrella species can actually help to revive the native biodiversity in general. So more specifically, we will discuss with you the consequences of habitat restoration and species reintroduction. Based on our long-term data, we can show that, yes, indeed, as we all would expect, wetland restoration does increase habitat suitability. However, this is not a sufficient measure to ensure the success of EMIS reintroduction in the long term. Moreover, we will present to you some highly detrimental consequences of habitat restoration and EMIS reintroduction, which are mainly connected to the increased invasion risk under global climate change and also anthropogenic threats and conflicts. And overall, we want to discuss in our workshop the role of people, stakeholders, and decision makers in a sustainable land management and governance, and whether species reintroduction like EMIS actually still makes sense in our changing world. All good?
Jamie, we've got a little problem with the computer. Is it this one?
I can see well. Accept.
Just accept. No. Help. This one's fine, yeah, but not everybody can see this one. Oh.
I will get another minute, I guess.
Help big time now.
Or turn this around.
Oh, are you sure? Yeah, well, yeah, okay. We'll get the technical team to come and... Can we plough on, do you think, Catherine?
Sorry?
Can we plough on? Are you okay?
Yeah, well, I just want to give you our key...
Oh!
No.
Oh, so sorry, Jamie.
Sin señal.
Okay, we've got a key message.
Well, yes.
Catherine,
hello.
while Jamie's maybe fixing that one,
yeah,
could you just give the key message? Because not everybody can see it. So
yeah, should we? How everybody can see it?
Just read it out.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
Well, anyway.
So sorry, Catherine.
No problem. Well, as we all heard today quite often that, well, ex situ conservation measures such as habitat restoration and reintroductions of threatened species must follow IUCN guidelines, which is not always the case. But this is not sufficient. They can only be sustainable if supported and accepted by local stakeholders in the broad public. We heard that as well. And yeah, if you want to discuss these points with us, we are here tomorrow in the first round of workshop 3. And tomorrow is World Turtle Day. So please be there. I see you at 9. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, I'm going to be brave and ask our very last 5 speakers to come up here. I have no idea what's going to happen next. Don't you love it? Yeah, Rino, yeah. Thanks. Okay, this could be a little compromised. We could, but I think they're trying to fix the big one. And the problem is that you can't see what you're presenting. Okay. I don't touch anything. Okay. So if you just press the big button, and let's see. Oh, there we go. You're on. Okay. All right. So, yeah, technical help is running to help us.
Should I
and I'm going to recommend that we actually make a little start. So, Renu is from Institute of Ecology and Life Sciences. Yes, thank you. And this is another Life IP project, Forest and Farmland. Go, Renu.
Hello, I'm Rinu Ranna from University of Tartu, Estonia. And this Forest and Farmland project is integrated life project, which means that it covers very many different activities. And actually, I would like to talk here today about just one particular action. And this is restoration of small water bodies. And the aim of this action is to secure amphibian populations, particularly our 2 target species, Pelobates fuscus and Triturus cristatus, in intensively used agricultural landscapes, and improve their breeding conditions. And to do so, or to achieve this aim, we restore 100 small water bodies in 10 different Natura 2000 sites, and we try to attract in this way amphibians from agricultural land into Natura sites, protected areas. So, and on this map you can see the Natura site, which is surrounded by fields, and the blue dots are the restored ponds, and our 2 target species are also presented. And we started with pond restoration in 2021, and so far we have restored 60 small water bodies in 8 different Natura 2000 sites. And we, of course, monitor all those water bodies before the restoration and after restoration. And in just 2 years after the restoration started, the number of small water bodies which are inhabited by our target species have been increased from 19% up to 31%. And here you can see this pond restoration, how from overgrown depression will be a sun-exposed water body. And what I would like to emphasize is that restoration of high-quality habitats is actually crucial to preserve amphibian populations. And when starting restoration of habitats, we have to know the habitat requirements of the target species. We have to know what the species really need. And when talking about aquatic habitat restoration, then our also previous knowledge and practice have showed that it can be successful if it is done in a landscape scale, and we have to restore ponds in clusters, not single water bodies here and there over the landscape, but clusters of ponds with different characteristics. Thank you very much.
Next, we've got Ramon, who is going to tell us about the Life Plus Lampropeltis project.
Good afternoon. I'm Ramon Gallo. I work in the public company of the governor of the Canary Islands. And it was all Life Plus Lampropeltis since 2011 until 2014. I will talk about our experience with an invasive alien species, the California king snake in Gran Canaria. The introduction began in 1988 due to accidental releases from an owner with many specimens that generate continued fortuitous release in the neighborhood until then. But unfortunately, it was not until 10 years later, through driven by social pressure for neighbors, that work began to control the species. From the beginning, it was intuited the goal of eradicating it was not possible, because of this, the main goal is to reduce the density of abundance of the California king snake in Gran Canaria with the purpose to minimize its impact in the biodiversity of the island. To achieve this purpose, several actions have been undertaken, such as the early warning system as part of the control measures, use the effective traps, and the promotion of participation and awareness of the population through the plant communication, and prevention of the dispersion to inside the island and other island through the biosecurity measures. In this slide, if you pick the QR code, you can see our panel control. I want to show you the distribution and the spacing in 4 different populations and how many captures have been made per year. Capture in red with the hand, our team, capture in blue thanks to citizens, and capture in green with trams. Since implementing a new work in 2020, there has been a notable rise of the captures both in team and citizen. We have captured more than 17,000 specimens since the beginning of the project. The studies by Piquet and Lopez Darias indicate several declines in native reptiles, endemic reptiles, with the reduction of the 19% of the Gran Canaria heel lizard, around 18% of the Gran Canaria skink, and almost 15% of the Bojeri wall gecko, potential leading to their extinction due to the rapid predation by the king snake. The invasion by the California king snake poses a critical challenge for Gran Canaria and the Canary Islands. While eradication is no longer feasible, they are a crucial strategy for control, enhancing trap selectivity, and aligning with an early warning system with species phenology are key. Citizen involvement is crucial, contributes significantly to captures. Moreover, biosecurity measures are crucial to prevent spread to other Canary Islands. But now it's imperative to improve knowledge of native reptiles and establish micro-reserves free of king snakes. Despite the alarming panorama, simplified with a picture showing a giant lizard regurgitated after a snake is captured, it's essential to maintain perseverance in the pursuit of creative solutions. Our team are ready to take on new challenges. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ramon. Let's hope we wish you well with the challenges. Okay, next is Dragicia and for Life for Moramis. Yeah, let's go.
Hi everyone, I'm Dragica, working with this beastie in this life project for 18 or 19 months, so we're 40% into project time. Where are we? Mediterranean secondary freshwater habitats, lentic and lotic, and a lot of areas where this that this animal occupies is actually agricultural land and the one used for personal use, so not commercial mostly. So we're working on this 5 Natura 2000 habitats in the southern part of Croatia, trying to improve the conservation status of Balkan terrapin and focusing classically on habitats, on the animal and stakeholders. With the restoration of with the restoration of the habitats, we are working with, as I said, small karstic ponds, canals. Some of them are meliorative canals since antique ages, Stagnum, Narona, and so. And some of them are in current use, and we are using this animal as umbrella species, promoting it as umbrella species, because in the Mediterranean, where you have some water, of course, you have human activity, tourism, and agriculture, but you also have every other animal. So, Emys orbicularis, Natrix tessellata, Tritorus vulgaris grecus, Hilar borea, Bufo viridis, and so on. A lot of bats, bugs, some interesting plants, and so on. So, yeah. When it comes to invasive species, we are in our project we are detecting and trying to deal, see what are the further steps with the mongoose, with catfish, with rainbow trout, invasive carp, and Calinectes subtidus. This is the American blue crab. So Mauremys is present in freshwater but also brackish areas, and it's also argonautic species traveling from Greece all over the Aegean and Adriatic Sea from island to island hopping species. So in project regarding the eradication and control, we are working with American knotgrass, Paspalum distichum, which is overgrowing the ponds, removing also Trochemys and Gambusia. We saw that in illegal fishing traps, sometimes also in other projects in removing invasive animals, we have direct mortality of Mauremys and also Emys on our project area regarding that traps. So one of highlights is in our project is a new type of bycatch-free turtle-friendly fyke net opening that we are registering as free industrial design. So hopefully that will be useful. First intention of that was in sport and in commercial fishing, but we saw in our recent results that we should change our focus group towards nature protection, nature conservation specialists, because the efforts of removing different invasive fish are in the Adriatic region projects are growing and more hunting power is required, and we do not have tools that are safe for turtles. Also, what is important is our pond keeper program, like early warning system and knowledge on where certain invasives are found. When it comes to land management, as I said, we work on small karstic ponds that are desiccated by invasive plants, eutrophication, earthquakes that shake off the stone walls, and working on habitat connectivity for the species. We work a lot with landowners in Natura 2000 area. So first long-term private land agreement was signed in Croatia in our project, hoping to make more of those. And we also have some short-term plan, which is very important. Also, with high nature value farming, impacting nesting sites, habitat connectivity, IS control, water management. We have to work with ordinances on agrotechnical measures. So in Croatia, it's kind of a problem that these are up to local governments. So either in future projects, we have to work more on awareness raising and education in local governments and collaboration in local governments, or find some overarching document, guidelines, a law, legislative policy that should enable them to also take into consideration species management and action plans, and Natura management plans also. In freshwater fisheries, overall, we have strict legislative in Croatia, but supervision is kind of tricky. A lot of harmonization is required, and new tools in supervision as well. We saw that water guards, nature protection guards, freshwater fishery guards, field supervision with the authorized county officials come from different institutions, different sectors sometimes, and that is a big opportunity for fine-tuning there. And yeah, when it comes to controlling freshwater IIS, aside from currently not having tools, as far as I know, they exist for marine turtles only, and maybe something for freshwater fishing, commercial freshwater fishing in Canada, but in Europe we do not have those tools so far. I think we should think about the trapping tools. So some of you mentioned we use mechanical and chemical tools to remove IIS from freshwater system, but no one said what kind of tools exactly. Trapping tools in Croatia are illegal in freshwater fishing. Technical specifications are on the mesh size, but not on the number and size of entrances, and how to deal with that, with some guidelines, national laws, and whatnot. So key messages to share. This small-scale species, local species-focused projects are good because you can find some policy soft tuning required. So maybe you have good policy there, but intersectoral communication tends to get better, and you can pinpoint some issues to be solved in the project and or further time slot. When it comes to further steps after this project, we are already planning next Maremis project that will come outside of Croatia area. Sorry, what did I do? Where is this? Sorry. So we are looking for partners for application in 2025. If you find yourself in these Natura areas, European and non-European countries, and have some issues that I just was talking about, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you.
So next we've got Pavel from Life for Delta.
Good afternoon, my name is Paweł Adamski. I would like to tell you a few words about our project Life for Delta. The main objective of this project is to restore the very unique hydrological system called Island Delta. It was about 4 square kilometers with Delta River in the west and 2 branches of this river in the middle and in the east. Our goal was to also increase an abundance of the sites for amphibians. There was also another goals, but I will concentrate on these amphibians and reptiles related. Our main activity in the beginning was to prepare to restore this water system. As you see, now there is much more water in this system. In the second picture, after you see that also the marks of our hydrotechnical work we have to done. Moreover, we prepare some specific breeding point for the amphibian, for the two species, Tritorus cristatus and Bombina bombina, and also one reptile species, Emys orbicularis. The individual, because for the long time this system was isolated, we have decided to introduce the captive rare individuals, but about it is more information about our poster you will be able to see tomorrow. What is our key message? The first one is water first, because the restoration, not only the small breeding ponds or breeding habitat, we have to restore whole functioning hydrological system, because it is more resilient, like small isolated breeding ponds. Moreover, restoration that system also influence the metapopulation matrix between these breeding ponds. The second one is that translocation-based activities support. They accelerated this natural process. We don't want to wait for individuals which recolonizate this area. We have to help them. Moreover, this control translocation is very good. Gave us possibility to control the process and learn the lesson. Thank you very much.
Great key messages, thank you. And Miroslav? Miroslav is from the Natura 2000 Slovak Republic. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Oh, hey, whoa. You're last, yeah.
Yeah. So
sorry Miroslav, over to you.
Thank you very much. So I'm the real Miroslav, and I came from the WWF Slovakia, and I would like to show you some key aspects of or elements of the. Again, it's an integrated project aimed at Natura 2000 network. We call it also Nature for All, and the area is the whole Slovak Republic. As I mentioned, among many others objectives, the most important ones are the implementation of priority action framework for a Natura 2000 network in Slovakia, and also improve some conservation status of Natura 2000 species, habitats, and also amphibians. The project started in 2021, will last 10 years, so we don't have too much results, but we can share some progress. And includes 8 project partners, and the lead partner is the Minister of Environment. So within the project, we have several pilot sites focusing on some priority species and habitats, but those which are aiming on the amphibians are 2. One on the west of the country, which is basically Morava River floodplain, which is aimed at several amphibians, including Danube newt, and on the east side of the country, basically the Taiba Natural Reserve, which is the most important locality with the occurrence of native population of European pond turtle. And also the approach and our key findings we would like to replicate in other Natura 2000 sites in Slovakia. And again, we choose these 2 topics or the 2 sites because of the former river training and worsening of the habitats, which is also fostering by the climate change. So our approach with the restoration is basically the classical restoration. We change the old drainage channels to the natural water retention measures, also with improving the habitats for amphibians and aquatic lives. We also would like to integrate some old meanders, but this is some lessons learned. With several variants of the introduction of meanderers, we have to choose between some of the variants were suitable more for the rheophilic fish and not for amphibians and vice versa. So we have to always discuss with Nature Conservancy of the topic of the or aim of the restoration. And also we will do some embankment removal for improving of lateral connectivity. So the next lessons learned, sometimes, especially in the nature reserves with strict conservation, we have to strictly discuss with conservation authority that still some active management is important because otherwise the habitats will disappear. Also, within the project, all important stakeholders work together. Also, the active management is supported with preparation of the management plans for the protected areas. We are doing the training of the staff for better communication and to raise awareness about the importance of Natura 2000 in Slovakia, and also some complementary projects are running. Lessons learned, and this is quite opposite that my colleagues from Poland said, at least in the Taiba Natural Reserve, that's the site with Emys orbicularis, we figured out that management and the protection of the nesting place is more important than ensuring the water regime, but we can discuss it later. Why is this? And a very general key message to share. So restoration are expensive and will be more expensive in the future, so sooner you start, the better. Also, when you are planning the measures and the monitoring, always keep in mind that climate change is fostering the habitats deterioration. Always discuss the target of the restoration and always involve local communities and stakeholders. Thank you very much.
And now we have Bogolyub, who will tell us about amphibian and reptile conservation in North Macedonia.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for the opportunity to speak here in this audience. North Macedonia actually came eligible to apply for LIFE projects several months ago. So I am not going to present the exact LIFE project, but also I would like to share with you what we have done in the previous years, which is a significant contribution towards the conservation of amphibians and reptiles in North Macedonia. The middle, okay. Until 2018, our country was completely white dot, as Balint showed on the map from SEH. We gathered in the previous years and in several local projects more than 16,000 records, about 46 species. This includes 14 species of amphibians and 32 species of reptiles. And we established the first national red list, and I must emphasize the really first national red list. And what I'm quite proud of, that this is a complete list for both classes, and it actually was a beginning of a red listing process in our country, so I'm quite happy about that. Within this project, we actually established that there are more than a half of the species of amphibians and 33% of the species of the reptiles are having a threatened category. So, we did this throughout the project from UNEP, and we were supervised under the regional office of IUCN in Belgrade. All this red listing was done according to the IUCN criteria. So, as you can see on the graph, irrelevant for amphibians, climate change is the most significant threat that is facing the populations in North Macedonia. Also, in terms of this, more than 92% of the amphibian species are threatened by the climate change, and this happens in all protected areas that we are having in our country. So what we require at most to have action plans for the threatened species, and for to search for additional clues in regards of the distribution of Testudo carolini, now Triturus carolini or Triturus dobrogicus, and also to see the status about Triturus grecus and Lysotriton vulgaris in our country, because this is rather confusing factor at this point. In terms of the reptiles, also climate change is among the first 5 threats that is recognized about these species. But there are maybe key species that are needing in situ protection, meaning that, for example, I will say about the syntopic populations of Vipera ursini, Vipera berus that we have on several sites in the range of the western part of the country. Also, Lacerta agilis is among the rarest. It has a very patchy and fragmented dispersal. So the mountain pastures where these species that I mentioned live, they are completely at this point are facing with habitat destruction, reforestation, and also habitat modification. So these species are quite important to have an action plans for this and to start up some in situ protection. Key messages, due to the fact that the template for the presentations, as you already saw, is for a specific project, and I had another slide about legal and financing that actually targeted the specific topic of Testudo hermanni, since Macedonia is the biggest exporter of Testudo hermanni in the world. Due to the farming facilities, that's why in the key messages in the last 4 are referring on this species, so I will not mention at this point. But as a key messages for others, we need in situ protection, we need early stage stakeholder engagement. Due to the fact that most of the people are just in our country just thinking who will protect the snake or lizard or something like that. Sustainability of interventions and disseminating results. At this point, this breakthrough for the amphibians and reptiles in our country that we made together with the Ministry of Environment is pretty much unknown. But at this point we are working with the Socias Europea Herpetologica, this mapping community with Neftali, to share the database, and I think that this will be a starting point of better conservation processes in our country. And also I'm really hoping that in very near future we will be one of the applicants for a new life. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing that application. Now, we have one thing left. Lars, come on. So, Lars wants to wake you all up. No, you're not asleep. Good, that's excellent. He's got a little video to show you. So, Jamie, can we have the video? It's a separate file, please. Do you want to say a few words about it first, Lars? It's coming.
I'm going to wait for it. Is he still there?
Yeah, he's still there. I hope he's still there. Can you find the video? Okay. Do you want to... shall I go and find it? Is that a good idea? Thanks, Marta. So we've already heard from this project, but Lars is really keen to show you his video, so...
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'll make a little announcement while we're waiting, just to save up on time. Directly after this, there's a break. I'm not going to call it a coffee break, because there is no coffee. So there we go. But I think you probably all appreciate it to stretch your legs and have a little wander around outside. No.
Kettle holds. The kettle holds. That's the name.
She's on it.
It's 23, I think. It was, the number was 23.
Okay, here we go. All right, so sorry there is no coffee, but you're very welcome. There is a coffee machine downstairs. Go get a drink of water, have a little wander around. We're only going to give you, okay, what shall we say, Karen? How long are we going to give them? 10. You've got 10 minutes, okay? And then you come back for the last leg. Okay, here we go.
Okay, this is going to be just a quick one. I'm just going to leave you with some images from the Amphicon project in the German project site, where I'm the project manager in the National Park Unteres Odertal. And this is an area in the Natura 2000 site, Lake Felchow, which is close to the national park. The basic landscape is a relict of the last ice age, and as you can see here, there's a lot of different small natural ponds, basically, that are called kettle holes. And these can serve as breeding grounds for bombina, obviously, but as you can see, there's a lot of pressures on this land from agricultural use, basically, and this has led to a wide range of degradations. Some of them have been mentioned before here. So what we're doing is basically we're using this natural configuration with the base layer of clay and just resetting basically the succession at these places. So of course this is what many people do, but here in this area we have a very special, especially the situation with Phragmites succession, and as you can see, it turns out to be a very monotonous place and not really suitable for our target species. And so what we're doing is, as you can see here also with regular drone flights, I'm trying to get an impression over time about our measures. And so if you take that into different phases, just right after we completed our measures, you could see it was still empty, but over the course of a couple of months and during 2023, they all filled up. And now we're going to continue to monitor, of course. There's a lot of other sites close to this. You can see here there's a larger water bodies in the close to the area, so we're really confident that there's going to be migration to these sites. As you can see, also buffer zones are also something that all of you probably know about. That's very important, and we kind of try to enforce them with posts. Yeah, and something also to maybe mention here is that it's sometimes worth not to do an intervention. So we're not doing all the water bodies in an area. We did about 30 ponds, and we skipped the one or the other to have other habitat types as well. So that was it. Thanks for sticking with me.
Okay, right. Well, that was amazing. You have just sat through 21. Was it 20? How many? 27. We started with 21. Okay. but then people came along and said, well, we'd like to tell about our project. So can we have a massive round of applause, please, for all 27 of you? And you should be really proud of the work that you're doing, because it is absolutely incredible, some of these interventions that you are making. Okay, so now you have 10 minutes. And then we need you back here, and we'll just do the last little bit, which is giving you information about what happens tomorrow. Great, off you go.
Los caminos de peregrinación son sendas de largo recorrido, donde cultura, historia y tradiciones se funden en un entorno salpicado por pequeñas poblaciones rurales. Los caminos de peregrinación son, además, espacios en los que cohabitan las actividades humanas con la vida salvaje de animales y plantas. La biodiversidad en los caminos es un valor público global que debemos preservar entre todos. Steps for Life es un proyecto enfocado en la conservación de la naturaleza y la recuperación de las especies mediante la mejora del hábitat por el que discurren los caminos de peregrinación. El proyecto se desarrolla en el Camino Lebaniego, atravesando los 12 municipios por los que discurre, desde San Vicente de la Barquera hasta Santo Toribio de Liébana, y los 3 ramales del Camino Leonés, Badiniense y Castellano. Además, trabaja también en el tramo del Camino de Santiago Portugués, que pasa por el municipio de Vilanova de Gaia. Este proyecto cuenta con un presupuesto de casi 3,5 millones de euros para transformar estos caminos de peregrinaje en corredores verdes, con un enfoque en la dimensión ecológica de la infraestructura cultural y turística que ya existe. Steps for Life incluye más de un centenar de actuaciones, alrededor de 300 áreas refugio, restauración de bosque de ribera, estuarios, hábitats forestales, entre otros. Gracias a la cofinanciación de la Comisión Europea y de las Consejerías de Turismo y de Desarrollo Rural del Gobierno de Cantabria. El proyecto lo ejecuta una agrupación de entidades coordinada por la Fundación Camino Lebaniego e integrada además por la Cámara Municipal Vilanova de Gaia en Portugal, la Fundación FIRE, Amica, Ampros y SEO BirdLife, que han unido sus fuerzas en beneficio de la biodiversidad y la conectividad ecológica. Steps for Life es turismo sostenible, cultura y naturaleza. Es trabajo en el terreno y actividades de divulgación y concienciación, una apuesta por la coexistencia del medio natural y rural, con el empleo verde y la inclusión de las personas con discapacidad como valores añadidos. El proyecto Steps for Life identifica 14 especies animales como objetivo prioritario. Si bien, a partir de su conservación, se conseguirá beneficiar a otras muchas especies asociadas. Insectos, mariposas, reptiles, murciélagos, aves e incluso uno de los grandes carnívoros de la península ibérica, el oso pardo. La divulgación de los valores ambientales y la sensibilización de la sociedad es también uno de los objetivos prioritarios de Steps for Life. Algunos de los beneficios esperados de este proyecto son la mejora del estado de conservación de los hábitats y especies a lo largo del camino, la puesta en valor de la conectividad ecológica, la mejora de los servicios ecosistémicos y el aumento de la sensibilización ambiental entre la población y usuarios del camino. Porque potenciar la infraestructura verde es fundamental para que las actividades antrópicas sean respetuosas con el medio ambiente y los seres que lo habitan. Steps for Life, un proyecto con dimensión europea que actúa a nivel local con alcance global. Una apuesta por el futuro del medio natural que revaloriza los caminos de peregrinaje, transformándolos en arterias esenciales para la vida.
Ciao, sono la testuggine palustre europea Emis orbicularis, ma tu puoi chiamarmi Emis. Vivo nei fiumi e negli stagni europei, ma da qualche anno sono minacciata dall'inquinamento, dal degrado degli ambienti in cui vivo e, se non bastasse, anche dall'arrivo delle mie cugine americane, che, vendute come animali da compagnia, spesso vengono abbandonate nei miei ambienti umidi. Il loro arrivo sta cambiando tutto il mio mondo. Non ho più cibo e posti dove prendere il sole. Inoltre possono trasmettermi varie malattie. Per questo la mia sopravvivenza è in pericolo. Per tutelare la mia specie in Italia e in Slovenia è nato il progetto Life Urca Proemis, che prevede il ripristino del mio habitat in 30 siti Natura 2000. Il ripopolamento in natura della mia specie attraverso 7 centri di riproduzione. La cattura delle testuggini esotiche e il loro affidamento a centri di accoglienza specializzati. Un piano nazionale di coordinamento delle azioni di salvaguardia della mia specie. Una campagna di comunicazione e sensibilizzazione rivolta al grande pubblico e agli stakeholder. Se acquisti una testuggine, ricorda sempre che rilasciarla in natura potrebbe causare la sua morte e che è vietato dalla legge perché può contribuire a ridurre la mia presenza. Cerca il centro di accoglienza autorizzato più vicino, se ne prenderà cura e io sarò al sicuro. Life Urca Proemis. Proteggiamo la testuggine palustre europea. Progetto cofinanziato dallo strumento finanziario LIFE dell'Unione Europea.
El massís del Montseny acull una espècie molt singular i que només habita en aquest lloc del món, el tritó del Montseny. Es tracta d'un amfibi que viu a les parts altes dels torrents de la conca del riu La Tordera, al Parc Natural i Reserva de la Biosfera del Montseny. Les primeres poblacions de tritó del Montseny van ser descobertes el 1979, tot i que en aquell moment es va considerar que pertanyien a una espècie molt propera, el tritó pirinenc. L'any 2005, gairebé 3 dècades més tard d'aquella troballa, es va determinar que es tractava d'una nova espècie per la ciència.
Vam analitzar espècimens animals del tritó pirinenc i de les poblacions del Montseny, que també en aquell moment eren reconegudes com a tritó pirinenc, i les vam comparar utilitzant unes tècniques moleculars que seqüenciem a l'ADN, i llavors vam poder veure que eren dues espècies diferents, és a dir, que no intercanviaven material genètic, que eren poblacions que estaven evolucionant independentment des de feia més d'1 milió d'anys. Les espècies endèmiques són més importants perquè només viuen en aquest indret. Si endèmica, en aquest cas, no és un endèmic polític, vull dir, és endèmic de Catalunya, però també és al mateix temps endèmic de tot el món. O sigui que és molt important, perquè si desapareix aquesta espècie, desapareix aquest llinatge de tota la història evolutiva.
El tritó del Montseny viu en torrents amb aigües fredes i ben oxigenades i de substrats esquistosos i pissarrencs, que li permeten amagar-se entre les cavitats de les roques.
Bé, el tritó, en el context del Montseny, si agafem el Montseny com a gran massís dintre de la gran unitat de la serralada prelitoral, dins del sistema mediterrani, és un massís que està dominat per dues grans litologies. Llavors hi ha altres particularitats, però les grans litologies són els granits per una banda i les pissarres per l'altra. Aleshores, el tritó en aquest context es localitzaria en el sector on apareixen les pissarres d'edat paleozoica, és a dir, unes roques molt, molt antigues que aquí les distingim de dos tipus, el que en diem estrictament pissarres i les que són les pissarres pigallades. Trobem l'hàbitat del tritó tant en pissarres com en pissarres pigallades, però no en els sectors on dominen els granits.
El seu cos està adaptat a la vida dels torrents del Montseny. El cap i el cos són aplanats, amb petites berrugues a la pell dorsal i amb ungles còrnies als dits, i gràcies a això pot subjectar-se amb força a les escletxes i així no ser arrossegat pel corrent de l'aigua. És un amfibi principalment actiu a la nit i no respira pels pulmons, sinó per la pell. El tritó del Montseny té la peculiaritat que es mou pel fons dels torrents. Si tingués uns pulmons ben desenvolupats, suraria i seria arrossegat pel corrent. Per això té uns pulmons reduïts, que són vestigials i no funcionen realment. respira per la pell i la boca i l'aigua ha d'estar a una temperatura molt baixa perquè contingui molt oxigen, cosa que facilita la respiració del tritó. Pel que fa a la reproducció, té lloc principalment durant la primavera, però ocasionalment també es pot produir la tardor, i tot el cicle vital el fa dins de l'aigua. Una altra de les particularitats d'aquesta espècie és que les poblacions es troben distribuïdes en dues zones diferents del riu la Tordera. En distingim la varietat oriental i l'occidental.
L'espècie geogràficament està distribuïda en dos sectors poblacionals, oriental i occidental, a banda i banda de la conca de la Tordera, i amb marcadors moleculars, amb marcadors genètics, hem pogut establir que aquesta separació, aquests dos nuclis, no es troben, o sigui, no ha hagut intercanvi d'individus entre aquests dos nuclis des de fa aproximadament uns 180.000 anys.
Aquest fet no només es manifesta en diferències genètiques, sinó també en trets morfològics ben evidents. Els exemplars del nucli oriental tenen taques de color groc pàl·lid, mentre que els exemplars del nucli occidental no en tenen, però els mascles sí que presenten una taca blanca molt característica al musell. Actualment, l'alteració de l'hàbitat, la reducció del cabal ecològic dels torrents, l'increment de la temperatura a causa del canvi climàtic i l'arribada de malalties infeccioses són amenaces que posen en risc la supervivència del tritó del Montseny, una espècie en perill crític d'extinció. És evident que el desplegament de les accions del projecte europeu Life Tritó Montseny contribuiran a la conservació d'aquesta espècie tan emblemàtica d'aquest espai natural.
Nyár a Kiskunságban. Nagy a sürgésforgás a Vipera központban. A szakemberek az itt született és nevelkedett kígyók szabadon engedésére készülnek. A rákosi vipera, ez a fokozottan védett őshonos faj, a 90-es évek végére a kihalás szélére sodródott. Mára azonban a több mint 2 évtizede tartó munkának köszönhetően a Kiskunsági és a Fertőhanság Nemzeti Park fokozottan védett gyepterületein biztonságban élhetnek. Az új környezethez történő minél könnyebb alkalmazkodás segíti, hogy a kibocsátási helyszínekre a kígyók számára már ismerős, a Vipera központ szabadtéri terráriumaiban megszokott kerámiából készült, 80 cm mély, földbeásott mesterséges telelőüregek kerülnek. Ezeket hosszú évek kísérletezése és tapasztalata alapján fejlesztették, és kizárólag a Vipera központ megrendelésére őrkényben készítik. A telelő üreget speciális gipszöntő formában, vörös agyagból készül 2 napon át. Az öntés után a telelő üregek 1 napig száradnak. Ezután leválasztják a formáról, majd kemencében 1000 Celsius fok feletti hőmérsékleten kiégetik. Pihentetés után az elkészült üregek a Vipera központba kerülnek, ahol előkészítik őket a kitelepítésre. A kígyók többsége az ivarérett kor elérése után 3-4 éves koruk körül kerül ki a szabad természetbe, ahol ideális élőhelyi körülmények, megfelelő búvóhelyek és elegendő táplálék várja őket. A speciális formájú és kialakítású fagyálló kerámia üregekben a kígyók kényelmesen tudnak mozogni és pihenni, de mindenek előtt biztonságos búvóhelyet biztosítanak számukra. Az elengedés fokozatos művelet. A területre érkező kígyókat a szakemberek az előre telepített telelőüregekbe helyezik, majd ezeket lezárják azért, hogy a kígyók a szállítás okozta stresszt nyugodt, védett, számukra ismert körülmények között pihenhessék ki. Másnap a területre visszatérve az üregeket kinyitják. Ezután a kígyók már megnyugodva kezdhetik meg új élőhelyük felfedezését. Minden óvintézkedés ellenére azonban a szabadba kikerülő és a területtel éppen csak ismerkedő kígyókra számos veszély leselkedik. Ezért az üregek fölé gyepszint magasságú védőhálók is kerülnek, melyek az üreg bejáratának környékét védik a ragadozóktól, és ezáltal biztosítják, hogy az élőhelyet még nem ismerő, eleinte bizonytalan állatok biztonságban fedezhessék fel környezetüket. A Rákosi Vipera védelmi program indulása óta eltelt közel 20 év folyamán összesen 907 rákosi vipera került 11 természetes élőhelyre. Ennek köszönhető, hogy a hanság és a kiskunság védett gyepein még mindig ott él ez a félénk, kistermetű, őshonos kígyó.
Amphibian and Reptile Conservation is a national wildlife charity dedicated to the conservation of two important groups of animals. These comprise the newts, frogs and toads, and the snakes and lizards. We were founded in 2009, but prior to that we came from an organisation called the Herpetological Conservation Trust, which was founded some 20 years before. We undertake a whole range of activities to conserve these species, including managing nature reserves, running national recovery programmes, running science and monitoring programmes. Our interests cover all of our native species, but they also extend into...
Well, you two are first and second, so you're here. Andrews, oh, lovely. Thanks, Andrews. She's coming. Yeah. So just so you know, it's the button, the big button to do your slides. To do your slides. Do you know it did? It's just it had that thing, you know, where it fades in and out. So you can control it just by pressing the little big button.
Okay. Okay, just pressing big button, and then it's one next.
Exactly. Yeah.
And if I want to,
I'm not sure about the pointing.
Pointing is not working, right? All right.
You want me to point for you?
Because I'm going to show some graphs. I would like to address them. So I should remain here, right?
I think so, because the microphone's here too. Yeah. Great. Excellent. Yeah, come see here. Come see here. Okay, I think we'll make a start since we've got all our speakers. So I just want to say welcome back after that very short break. I hope you've all recovered from the speed presentations. So my name is Karen LUNAN. I work with Lynne at ELMEN. And I'm going to give Lynne a bit of a break from chairing because she's been pretty busy all day. So during this session, we're going to shift our focus back to projects and explore some of the more kind of practical solutions for amphibian and reptile conservation, which will help set the scene for our working groups tomorrow. So a very warm welcome to our four speakers who are going to share their experiences and reflections. And just to say, there'll be an opportunity for questions at the end of the 4 presentations, so if you've got any questions, hang on to them until then. So it's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker for this session, Agustin Camacho GUERRERO, Assistant Professor at the Universidad Autónoma de Madrid. Agustin is an international expert specializing in evolutionary ecophysiology and biogeography, and has created VulneraWeb, a web-based platform designed to help identify and map climatic risks for species. So without further ado, Agustin, the floor is yours.
Well, hello everyone. I am thrilled of being here, very thankful for trying to help and contribute a little bit to protect these animals that we all love. I think that, like many of you, I have tried to this device or to get to a job that will get me close to these animals that we want to learn from. And I have been doing that for a long time already, from steep mountains of the Amazon to torrid volcanic slopes at volcanic island of the Mediterranean Sea, even with people here like Professor Leonardo Vignoli in the EOLIFE project that we have heard about today. And to make myself useful at these places, what I have been doing is, during the last decade, I had to try to develop this very, very simple system to measure the heat tolerance of many species in the field. I do that by measuring the voluntary thermal maximum, which is a body temperature that reptiles and amphibians will try to avoid at almost any cost, but that you can measure very quickly without harming them. By doing that, if you do that, you can contrast these temperatures, these tolerances, with estimations of the microenvironmental temperatures that they are going to be exposed to across geographic areas, like, for example, in this slide of the Amazon basin. So by doing that, you can identify places where conditions are going to get too hot or too dry for these animals. This is nothing very new. Other people have been doing this using other measures of heat tolerance, like, for example, the critical thermal maximum in the right, or the preferred body temperatures in the left. But this voluntary thermal maximum seems to constrain, much more importantly, the maximum temperatures that the hottest known populations of each species can withstand. This means that if you measure the voluntary thermal maximum of any of these species in the field of any population, you can later identify which will be the maximum temperatures that they can withstand in the hottest population across their entire geographic range. And that's very important to identify climatic vulnerability. And that comes from for a reason. Like any other living being, when they are exposed to higher temperatures, the time they can survive these temperatures becomes exponentially less. They can survive less time as they exposed to higher temperatures. Because this happens, one can contrast this curve of time to thermal death with the combinations of temperatures happening at any given site. Like, for example, this place, there is Laredo, but not here, but in the United States. And one thing that we can find when we do this is that either temperatures that are too extreme, that could kill animals very instantly, are very rare. But the same happens to temperatures that need to be experienced for a long time to be able to kill an animal. And that happens. It happens that both the extreme cases and the mild temperatures that need a lot of time of exposure to kill, they are very rare in nature in general. That's the reason why when you do maps of climatic vulnerability using different measures of heat tolerance, you have very different power to identify vulnerable populations. In this case, when comparing these different measures, we can find that the voluntary thermal maximum gives you a much higher power to identify thermally vulnerable populations than the other traditionally used measures. It is still less than the whole curve of thermal tolerance, but estimating one of those curves involves killing many animals and taking a lot of time. So it works as a safe way to identify climatic vulnerability without having to harming the animals that we want to preserve. So encouraged by these results, and thanks to a Marie Curie fellowship that I have developed at the Spanish Research Council, I created this platform that is dedicated to help people to measure thermal tolerance and identify climatic threats for the animals they study or they are trying to conserve. This is at your service, and it's free of charge. With this platform, I have started to engage into local conservation societies and in local governments, and try to expose these tools to try to help enhance conservation of herpetofauna. But I have found that many people in these places, they don't really understand what it needs to, the amount of different professionals that are needed to help vulnerable populations against climate change. So in this talk, I try to address that and try to get increase the perception of these complexities. Okay, so identifying a climatically vulnerable population of an herp, of a reptile or an amphibian, involves addressing three main components. The first of it is sensitivity, which requires ecophysiologists to measure their thermal tolerance or tolerance to other conditions and how animals perform across this range of conditions. This tolerance is also plastic, so it requires different experiments for them to be determined. Okay, that's just the start of the work, because you need other people. You need ecologists, particularly population ecologists that are based on population surveys, to be able to estimate the probability of survival of these individuals to different exposures of time and temperature. Okay, different combination to exposures to different combinations of time and temperature, and that's a hard job to do. And this takes us to the second component of climatic vulnerability, which is exposure. Many people, and the common sense tells us that the more, I don't know if you can see, is it possible to, no. If it's possible to signal something, to point at something. Well, I don't know if you can see the range, the species range modeled out there. Many people think that that species are more vulnerable to climate change because their ranges are subjected to more climatic change. So because of that, they are more vulnerable to that. But that's not the case. These species, they have been there for millions of years, and they have amazing tricks, or some of them behavioral, just like burrowing under the substrate or within a crevice. And they have been very able to survive to climates that were even worse than this one, the present one. So it's very important to consider that. So in order to correctly identify or estimate the exposure of these animals to deleterious conditions, we need a lot of work, and that involves climatologists that gives us the different expected climatic scenarios for each population. We need biophysicists or programmers that are capable of transforming these climatic scenarios into expected body temperatures, and that requires a lot of data from organismal traits, their behaviors, their tolerance. And all of that requires very multidisciplinary teams that right now I feel that we are not assembling. So once that we can put together the expected climates with the biophysical equations that translate that into body temperatures, and that filtered by the habitat by the organismal traits that of the animals that we are studying, we can identify whether the experienced body temperatures can actually overcome the tolerance of the species, only in that ways. And that takes us to the third component of climatic vulnerability, which is adaptability. Even if that happens, species have several different ways of living with population crashes. When a climatically induced stress happens, there is what we call evolutionary adaptive potential, or adaptive potential, that allows, thanks to the genetic and trait variation that exists within populations and across populations, that some individuals will be able to tolerate those and then survive and repopulate. Okay? There is another subcomponent of this adaptability component, which is the resilience, which is the capability of populations that for these surviving individuals that are hidden in well-protected places or just in adjacent populations to come back, disperse back, and recover the populations after the climatically induced impact. So to know all that, to assess that, we need a lot of people involved. In this case, we will need population ecologists, landscape ecologists, sometimes community ecologists to assess the effects of negative interactions over this capacity. And this takes us to a particular problem, to a particular question, which is, I think we are all used to see large, I'm perceiving that this is not the presentation I gave, the presentation one that I gave today, but is the one I gave before, yeah. Anyway, so the thing is, one thing that we need to start questioning us is, we are used to see large evaluations of many species vulnerability, climatic vulnerability across species, right? This has been done by the IUCN, many fantastic workers that have been able to identify critically endangered species. But make no mistake, the climatic vulnerability issue is a population level thing. It's something that totally depends on not only on the species traits, but also on the location traits. And that means, like, for example, a salamander, a species that probably most of you know, is going to be able to have absolutely fine, healthy population across a part of its range, but it's going to lose probably several populations that are already on the verge of climatic-induced extinction. So climatic vulnerability is something that I think we should start addressing at the population level, using these multidisciplinary assembled teams. And this is how it comes. The proposal of VulneraWeb is to identify, is based on two pillars of ecological theory, which are the fundamental niche and the realized niche. The fundamental niche represents the range of conditions across one species can reproduce. Okay, it can do it a little bit less effectively towards the edges of the niche, but it does it very well within the center, the optimal region of the niche. But then, in reality, the distribution of a species, the range of conditions at which we find the species, is the realized niche. And that is determined by the capacity of the species to disperse, so sometimes they cannot reach to where they could be living because of dispersal barriers, or because they are being heavily negatively interacted by other species, such as predators or parasites. So my proposal is to identify the populations that are going to be eliminated, that are going to be experiencing in the next 10 to 20 years conditions that are not included in the realized niche right now. Why doing that? Because these populations of each species, of each vulnerable species that we are really consider important for conservation, they are going to be under conditions that could make them particularly susceptible to this parasitizing, predating, any negative interaction. And that's because of that is why they require our assessment and potentially our adaptation actions, but in these places, not in others. Because in others, they will be just fine. If the next 20 years climate change is not, the climate of these populations is not more extreme than it has been in the past, there is no reason to care about them regarding climatic vulnerability. Regarding other problems, yes, but not regarding climatic vulnerability. So I did that for almost 300 species. There's so much data lacking here. So I did that for almost 300 species cataloged by the IUCN as vulnerable or worse, and identified the populations that in the next 20 years, or already from 2020 to 2040, they are going to be exposed to climates that are not included in their realized climatic niche. This means they are going to be exposed to more extreme climates, drier or hotter or colder, that they have been they have shown to be able to withstand. And they give us a lot of points all across the world. A lot of them are in Europe. You can see that Spain doesn't look particularly happy. And that's because the region of the basins of the Guadalquivir, Tajo, Duero are going to be particularly affected for species that are inhabiting that areas. And and here are some instructive patterns. Particularly, latitude is not very informative on the certainty of being in such a situation that we call climatic threat, but altitude is very informative. Altitude tells us that for each species, which is here represented by the different lines, lower altitudes are going to have a much higher certainty of climatic threat due to heat, to hotter situations, while higher altitudes are going to be much more certainly impacted by colder situations. Okay, it's not only the problem with the heat, but also with the cold. The precipitation is going to create problems too, but we don't have any particular geographic problem for these 293 species of IUCN reptiles. So before giving my key messages, I would like to leave you with this encouraging image in which some Swiss ladies have been able to actually sue their government to make them responsible for taking action against climatic problems. Okay, so right now, despite this was a human rights problem, these ladies, they have set a precedent for us living in any part of Europe to actually make our local governments responsible for taking action of mitigation. And if we now know where the vulnerable populations are going to be under climatic threat, we can say, hey, local government, now you need to do things or I'm going to have to sue you. All right? So I think that we can get more help apart from this fantastic help that we have from the LIFE projects. So these the two key messages that I would like to give is that estimating population vulnerabilities to climate change, obviously, is a very complex and multidisciplinary process that is not going to be guaranteed that the populations are going to be vulnerable everywhere where there is climate change. And now that we can identify climatically threatening sites, how do we do to engage with the local administrations to protect our species through research-guided implementation of conservation actions? And that's what I would like to leave for thought. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Agustin, for your very interesting talk. And my apologies that it wasn't the latest version of the presentation shown today. But thank you for introducing us to the VulneraWeb tool. And obviously, I hope everyone in the room can see its practical application for herpetofauna conservation protection measures in the face of climate change. So I'm sure this is obviously a good platform for you and your project to kind of interact with others as well, to come and talk to you more about it. Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Well, so now it's my pleasure to introduce and welcome Ricardo Scalera. So Ricardo is currently the Program Officer of the IUCN Invasive Species Specialist Group and has long-standing expertise on biological invasions and nature conservation policy. Ricardo provides support to the European Commission on the development and implementation of the EU regulation on IAS. And, we are personally also very pleased that you're here to support this event because Ricardo also worked as a monitor for many, many years on the LIFE program. So, Ricardo, over to you.
Thank you very much. So, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much to the organizer to give me this opportunity to be here. I'm really, really happy to be back with my colleagues, indeed. And anyway, having the opportunity to present the work that I've been doing in the last years together with my colleagues of IUCN, that I also want to thank. We have been doing a lot of work in the last years for the European Commission to help member states to implement the regulation on invasive alien species. So, well, I'm pretty sure you are all very familiar with alien species and the problem they might create. But let me start with some remarks just to put the things in the context. And I would like to emphasize the importance of this report. It's very recent and is considered a real, let's say, landmark assessment for our concerned alien species because it provides an updated picture of the situation. For those that are not familiar with this report, it is the result of a study of 3-4-year-old, a very long process of peer reviewing tens of thousands of papers and references done by some 80 authors, plus about 200 contributing experts. So it's a massive work. And okay, it really confirmed the importance of the impact of invasive alien species. You will find on the internet the report, the summary for policymakers, and a lot of interesting data. What I wanted to stress today is that, okay, yes, invasive alien species are indeed one of the main drivers of biodiversity loss. We already knew, but this is now very well documented. And there are a few take-home messages that I wanted to underline for this conference. That is, okay, we know now that we have to address invasive alien species. Is really important, is urgent, but also that current policies have not been sufficient so far. Let's say the European Union, after all, is not so bad compared to many other regions and countries. And however, this should also, let's say, remove, this report should remove really any uncertainty about the invasive alien species threat. But still, there are very often, let's say, works that are published by scientists who deny the actual impact of invasive alien species, the importance to manage invasive alien species. So basically, okay, this happened also with climate change, we already know. But the interesting part of it, if you have the chance to read this paper, is that sometimes they really provide arguments that are a bit weak, I would say. You can see this from the paper from Simberloff and colleagues, who actually made this rebuttal paper where they analyze point by point all the arguments and show their weaknesses. So they start often with false assumption or weak assumption and build some theses that might also seem reasonable, but actually, again, since it starts from, since it is based on false or weak assumption, the logical link is completely lost. And this is, okay, yeah, anyway, without going into detail too much, I wanted to skip to the next slide, because we have actually evidence of the effectiveness of eradication as a conservation measure. It's actually one of the tools that provides more evident and concrete results, also in very short terms in general. And there was a paper that is a bit old, but showed how addressing invasive alien species, that is actually a main driver also of the change of category of conservation status of threatened species. I mean, when you address invasive alien species, you can, let's say, easily change the category of the conservation status. So it's really an important measure. And this also, let's say, goes toward the importance of addressing the target of the EU biodiversity strategy. The one on the invasive alien species, let's say, requires that member states will reduce by 50% the number of red-listed species threatened by invasive alien species. So as you can see here, this, by managing invasive alien species, you might contribute to achieve this target. There is another very recent paper on the positive impact of conservation action that analyzes several, let's say, studied several researches and shows how, let's say, by targeting invasive alien species, you may achieve the greatest goal, and especially you do much more than by doing nothing. So you can make a difference by managing invasive alien species. What is the situation in Europe? According to the IPBES report, there are about 37,000 alien species in the world. 40,000 are in Europe, according to EASIN, that is the, let's say, website of the Commission where all the information on alien species is stored. Of course, not all are a threat to biodiversity or have an impact, but we know more or less 10%. This is a rule, let's say empirical rule. But although sometimes, I mean, for example, with mammals, we know that even 50% of alien mammals can have an impact, therefore becoming invasive. We have, therefore, invasive alien species have a very important impact on biodiversity, but also on the economy, as you can see from this very recent study that, yes, has calculated the impact of a number of invasive alien species, not all. So it's a very conservative estimate. It's 116 billions of euro between 1960 and 2020. In a year, I don't remember which year, it was calculated in being around, I think, 20 billion euro. That means being higher than the GDP of a country like Malta. So it's really something important, huge. We already knew it in Europe, because in Europe we made some analysis in the past, even before the regulation came into force, and through LIFE, actually, but also with the Horizon Europe project, the EU had already invested many millions of euro in several projects, and these estimates were done very precisely, let's say. So also these estimates are conservative, but show the importance of addressing alien species. And because it was done before the regulation came into force, it shows how even wildlife managers already perceived the threat of invasive alien species like something impelling to be dealt with. But specifically, we also know that alien reptiles and amphibians have a huge impact. Look at these figures. Between 1986 and 2020, $17 billion were spent or were calculated damage by invasive alien species. And if you read the paper into detail, you will see that these figures is only basically 2 species, Lithobates catesbeianus and Boiga irregularis. So there is nothing known about all the rest of the many species of invasive reptiles and amphibians. So figures, again, are impressive. So I said, anyway, the EU, compared to many other regions and countries, after all, has a good policy framework, after all. So we knew already Habitat Inverse Directive, Wildlife Trade Regulation, Aquaculture Regulation, they all address in a way or another invasive alien species. But more recently, from 2015, we have the EU regulation that came into force and is specifically dedicated to prevent, minimize, mitigate the adverse impact on biodiversity due by intentional or unintentional introduction of alien species. I want to spend a few words on this regulation. The core of the regulation is the Union list, the list of species of Union concern. This list is made on the basis of risk assessment. Also, in this case, we did risk assessment together with IUCN or with many other, let's say, experts, let's say, under the lead of different organizations and institutions through the years. The process to approve to see whether the risk assessment qualify and the species qualify for listing is very long. And at the end, we came up with 88 species of unknown concern so far that are listed, among which we have 2 species of reptiles and 2 of amphibians. Well, actually, one amphibian, Xenopus levis, will enter the list the next month in August. But let's say this is then the focus of our work now. Yes, the regulation is also structured in 3 main pillars: prevention, early detection, and rapid eradication, management of established species. There are actions triggered by the regulation in relation to the species of union concern. That is, of course, prevent new introduction, restrict any kind of intentional activities like import, keeping, breeding, growing, and et cetera, and also foresee, let's say, the draft. This is mandatory for member states to develop management, pathway management plans to address also unintentional introduction. And there are, of course, there is an obligation to implement early detection rapid eradication measures. We can see the results here. I don't know, maybe, sorry, the writing is too small for this panel, but you can see that there are already some early eradication of some of the species of union concern of reptiles and amphibians. This allowed, therefore, let's say, to remove from the environment in a very early stage animals found belonging to this species, which possibly prevented the further spread and impact. For species that are already widespread, there is an obligation to implement management measures, and something I will also discuss a bit more in detail later is that in any case, whether it is management, whether it is eradication, you have to consider the welfare of animals, and so to avoid, let's say, any suffering or unnecessary pain to the animals that are removed. The regulation is much more of invasive alien species of union concern. In fact, it allows to address also species that are of regional concern or of member state concern, or even species that are not in any list at all. Which are the tools to address invasive alien species? Actually, I made this slide a few days ago without realizing that probably yesterday it was the anniversary, the 32nd anniversary of the LIFE program, because it was the 21st. Well, I was checking because I realized that the slide was old. Anyway, so we know that LIFE has been a very important tool to implement the regulation. The regulation on invasive alien species even before the regulation came into force, as we have seen. But there are other tools, Horizon Europe, the Agricultural Fund, as also Frank stressed this morning, and many other funding. So we have tools to implement action. Of course, there is a lot to do, so the money are never enough, but at least it's something. We have some tools in the EASIN database. The EASIN database or the EASIN web page is managed by the JRC and includes many tools for, let's say, helping member states to implement the regulation. First of all, there is a catalog of all amphibian reptiles in Europe that counts about 168 taxa. Then there are a number of resources, among which, as you can see here, not only for all the species of union concern, there are fact sheets and a link to the risk assessment, etc. But you have also, for example, smartphone applications. And we know the importance of citizen science, let's say, in general for, let's say, involving people, citizens, raising awareness, but also getting data for, let's say, conservation measures. Together with our IUCN colleague, as I said before, we developed a number of tools, among which this brochure that explains the regulation. It is, let's say, made for the lay people, but also for, let's say, people working anyway in the field of conservation that wants to have, let's say, an understanding, a basic understanding of how the regulation works. We made a brochure for all the species of union concern. It includes a description of the species, the habitat, the pathways, and so on. It includes drawings, and what I would like to stress here is that the drawings are all original and they can all be used free of charge, provided the source is acknowledged. So it's really used by the Commission to, let's say, support the work of member states also on this regard. We also did identification guides to help, let's say, both people in the field, but also people, for example, at customs. So the guide that we have so far made are one for Xenopus levis, another one for Amphibians jetula, and that includes drawings of not only the target species, but also of species, similar species that can be found in trade or in the field. Also here, there are about, I think, more than 40 and more than 80, respectively, drawings that can be used for making your own guides in your country. And then we have management notes. This is, I think, one of the main output can be really useful, especially for, for whoever writes life projects, for whoever select life project, and so on. It includes very detailed information with references on management methods that can be used for the different species. We did this for the 4 species of union concern, but also for species that are, let's say, native in some EU countries, but introduced in others. So it's a, let's say, a first, somehow, it's a document to start planning actions. And more recently, last year, we organized a dedicated workshop to extend the note of Lampropeltis jedula to all snakes. So we draft a note, and then we discuss this through a workshop where we invited, let's say, all main experts globally on the management of alien snakes. We had very interesting input, of course, from from Ramon and this group of people. And in fact, most of the information comes from their project. And so it was a way, let's say, to involve the community, to create or to, let's say, contribute to create a network. And this, let's say, resulted in this publication that has been very recently finalized and made available on the Commission website that I will show you soon. And lastly, we made this report. This is a very interesting document we did. It's many hundreds of pages. And we wanted to see which measure exists and what is their impact in terms of humane management, in terms of animal welfare. We have, for amphibian reptiles, we have this available only for bullfrog and Trachemys crypta, because at the time they were the only two species when we started the project. They were the only two species that were in the list. We did this with a number of partners that you can see here, among which Eurogroup for Animals. So the measures, I mean, we really found the best compromise in terms of feasibility and consideration on animal welfare, as said. There are 32 measures analyzed in detail, and they are gathered together into 8 categories. And for each measure, we provide feasibility, all kind of information that you can find, of course, if you are interested on this report in the relevant appendixes. And the important message from this report is that, as you can see, this is the typical invasion curve. And as we said before, addressing biological invasions at a very early stage is not only cheaper, it does not only provide a very good service to the environment, but it also, let's say, help avoid any, let's say, unnecessary suffering to a big number of animals. I mean, addressing the problem at an early stage means that the animal affected by the removal are, let's say, lower. Therefore, what the regulations say is, in fact, you should spare any avoidable pain, distress, and suffering without compromising the effectiveness of the management measure. Therefore, if the only measure, unfortunately, can be a bit, let's say, heavy in terms of impact on animal welfare, okay, you have it, but you should use it at a very stage so to avoid impacting too many animals. Yes, here the key resources, here the website of the resources and tools that are available is the website of the European Commission, of the JRC, and of the IUCN. And here a few points. I mean, I will not read them now in detail. We will probably talk about it more in detail tomorrow. But what I wanted to say as a take-home message is, first of all, of course, as I said, dealing with invasive species is really a concrete measure to bring some conservation results. Of course, there are many gaps in knowledge that would be needed to be addressed, and this, through your LIFE project, might be really, let's say, important to contribute to. And of course, this is for you, I think, also an occasion to tell us a bit more what is that might be needed from, let's say, our side, the Commission side, to help you with tools to, let's say, implement measures to deal with invasive alien species and, yeah, and nature conservation in general. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ricardo, for that overview on the current and emerging threats in relation to herpetofauna IAS, and also, yeah, really useful highlighting some of the, the available tools and resources that people can access. So I would now like to introduce our next speaker, Katja Polosai. I hope I've said that okay. who's a herpetologist at the Center for Cartography of Fauna and Flora in Slovenia. Katjan is an amphibian specialist with over 25 years experience and has played a key role in establishing a Natura 2000 network for amphibians, and she's going to talk to us about some of the practical approaches of conservation as part of the Life Amphicon project. Thank you, Katja. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So how it's working?
Just the big button to use the slides.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I hope that everyone is still awake. It's late in the afternoon. First, thank you to organizers to give us the opportunity to present the project. So I will just start. Our project is an international project of 3 countries, Slovenia, Denmark, and Germany, and we are a bunch of 9 partners with different different types of stakeholders. So it's like municipalities, we have 1 ministry, protected areas, NGOs, and also small to medium enterprise. So we are working in 6 Natura 2000 sites, and the project is still in, we are working on it, so it will finish in 2026. So our primary objectives, of course, are our Bombina variegata, Bombina bombina, and Triturus carnifex, but with all the the species that share the same habitats will also benefit from all our measures, which are mainly restoration of ponds and terrestrial habitats and enhancing habitat connectivity, reducing road mortality, and improving coherence of all projects' sites. And of course, all our project sites are all in more or less agricultural landscape, where also the loss of suitable aquatic and terrestrial habitats is issue for our species. So just short presentations. We go from north to south. This is a small Natura 2000 site in Denmark, where is also the Bombina bombina, very small population present, where actually they, the main threats are, of course, also despite just the lack of the habitats in general, because this is the touristic area. It's also low reproduction success and also the overgrowing of breeding site. Feldhausegebiet in Germany, Lars already presented it, so it's a large agricultural landscape, and especially cattle holes that are remnants of Ice Age are key water habitats for Bombina bombina. And as beside also intensive agriculture, also the short hydro period, land recruitment, all other threats are present. So we move to Slovenia. We are on Ljubljansko barje, which is doorstep of our Ljubljana, the capital of Slovenia, and this is a cultural landscape where people are present for many thousands of years, and at the same time, this is also wetland, which is characterized by different big mosaic of meadows and fields. And here, the amphibian habitats are mostly a dense network of drainage channels, and we also have a lot of hedgerows. And as I said, the main threats are, of course, besides the negative impacts of agriculture, also the interaction of the effects of climate change and road infrastructure, urbanization, and inappropriate water management are biggest threats in this area. And our target species here are Bombina variegata and Triturus carnifex. We move to Radensko polje, which is a karstic field with intermittent lakes, and the main threats here are again the short hydro period because of changing of water regime in the past, and now with climate change, all these intermittent lakes dry out too soon for successful successful amphibian reproduction, and so also the road infrastructure has an effect on the populations. And also this, we moved to Yossi, to the south of the country. Already Anya presented that we deal here with a small and isolated Triturus carnifex population. And this is a floodplain when, again, the change in water management in the past is the direct influence is also the drying out of the whole landscape. Of course, inappropriate water management still going on. It's one of the biggest threats. And this is Bohor. It's our only forested area, project site, where we are dealing with Bombina variegata, where actually it's again the intensification of agriculture on saddle slopes, and also the different practices in forestry are main threats that disappear, that here are small puddles and ponds are drying out and disappearing from the landscape. So just a short now what we do. Of course, creation and restoration of ponds is our common measure, but in every site we have different issues with how to establish the suitable pond network. So in German side, it was also very interesting that here only the restoration of kettle holes was allowed, so no new areas for ponds due to conservation of Ice Age landscape. And also, if we move to Ljubljansko barje, for example, here it's again due to the traditional landscape here is made of channels. Also, our ponds are more like linear shaped, so that we kind of also got the improvement from our nature conservation and cultural conservation authorities. And at the same time, when the archaeological survey was also, we had in place, and we were lucky that out of 50 ponds, only one pond come out that there were remnants of pile-dwelling settlement that dated back like 5,000 years and more, so that we just have the opportunity to make an alternative pond. But all these are actually issues in every different sites. And when it comes to Radensko polje, where people said, oh, but this is like intermittent lake, you have plenty of water. The problem is that this is a karstic feature which all the water goes underground very fast. So our ponds here, we want to make them impermeable, with impermeable bottoms, which means that we were surveying for layers of clay locally, so that we could use the clay, local clay, to make ponds depending only on the rainwater and not that water goes underground. And the opposite problem on Yossi, it was again just during the construction, that sometimes it was the groundwater very high, and it was quite a challenge also to dig all the ponds. And here our ponds are also the biggest size. And our smaller ponds are actually in the forest for Bombina variegata, where it's also for all sites before the land was purchased for making ponds. Here it was the approach, because these are big forest parcels with private owners, private owners, that actually the approach was like one-time compensation contract with the owners that allowed to build a small pond and also allowed for managing and monitoring of species in the future. So to sum up, all the main principles of pond construction is, of course, that it must be present of suitable terrestrial habitat in the area, and that we have to cluster the ponds, and also that all the ponds in the cluster must be diverse when it comes to size and depth and shapes, whatever, and also that connection to running water has to be avoided, because fish and sedimentation are a big problem, and sedimentation and pollution of agricultural landscape. So all this should be under guidance of also of amphibian experts, and not last but not least, also all actions must be based on current data, and also so that we can implement the best practices for implementing the right measures, knowing the ecology of local populations. And of course, as expert supervision is essential during the whole planning and implementation process. And I just want to stress that also forests are of course very important for amphibians, and that forestry can also actively support with small measures in also for conservation of amphibians. And last but not least, it's important also to secure the long-term management of ponds through land ownerships and long-term easements, or with owners or tenants, so that it's really effective on the long term. So then we move to terrestrial habitat management, and one of big measures are grassland management, when land around the ponds is not in a good status. So mowing and mulching together with IAS removal and extensive grazing and clearing of unwanted woody vegetation are main methods, and of course no fertilizer and pesticides use, and also mowing schedule amphibian friendly, so to speak. And I think when it looks from north to south of Europe, grazing is very important in the northern areas, but at least our experience in Slovenia is that for nature conservation, that mowing is much more appropriate, because usually overgrazing is quickly becoming a problem. And of course, we did some grassland restoration. As you know, this is a process. So it goes from conversion to permanent grasslands and clearing the shrubs and preparing for grazing. At the same time, also, when it comes to plots that were infested with EIAs, it's of course additional mechanical seedling important, and also transplantation of small grass sward. Sorry. So other terrestrial measures that we use is making some buffers, planting hedgerows, and also making some hibernation sites. And one of the more very important methods are also population reinforcement for our small populations, and with extensive practice from the last 30 years from our Danish partners. We can use also, we were transferring the knowledge in Slovenia, and we started to supporting breeding of Triturus carnifex, which is the first time in Slovenia, and also I think that's the first time for Triturus carnifex as a species, to my knowledge. It's going in the wrong direction. And one of important measures in our project is also amphibian mitigation measures on roads, where actually on 3 sites we will establish measures on more than almost 5 kilometers of roads. And of course, they are always in connection with our habitat management project sites. So I think this will be also a very important part of our project, and I'm proud to say that actually in our project we use all measures possible for amphibians, so hopefully it will have the good results. And of course, we have, beside these concrete conservation actions, all these soft measures are also important. And of course, monitoring is the best, is the basic also to help develop and refine the best practice guidelines. And also the transfer of knowledge and replication actions are important. Education is a big part of our project, and also public awareness and communication. And just to, in Slovenia, we established also a coordination center for amphibians in Slovenia, which is a kind of one-stop shop for amphibian conservation. And I think this is a good approach that we work nationally on amphibian conservation issues, and we collaborate with a lot of toad frog patrols and citizen science, different citizen science projects, and at the same time we collect data and we will make them publicly available through our bioportal interface, and not only the citizen science results but also our monitoring data from pre-monitoring and also after monitoring process. And just to finish, take-home message. So it's the creation and restoration of ponds together with habitat improvements on large terrestrial areas demonstrate a holistic approach to ecosystem restoration for amphibians. And additionally, also amphibian road migration measures will be implemented to reduce road mortality and to improve the coherence of Natura 2000 sites. And of course, to mitigate the risk of extinction for very small and isolated populations, the population reinforcement through supportive breeding should be implemented. And all actions must be based on current data on population status and habitats, using best practices to ensure effective measures. And expert supervision is also essential through the whole process. And evaluating success, of course, helps to develop and refine best practice. And to finally, the knowledge transfer, public awareness campaign, and education initiatives are key to facilitating replication and promoting public engagement in amphibian conservation. And I think that also Coordination Center has a good starting point for Slovenia. So, thank you. And just to present all our group, you are welcome to meet us, and these are all our contacts. Thank you.
Thank you, Katia, for presenting such a range of measures that is being implemented in the Amphicon project. I think it gives us a really good, food for thought for the workshops tomorrow, and yeah, lots to discuss. So thank you for that. So last but by no means least, I would like to introduce our final speaker this afternoon, which is Andris Cerans, herpetologist from Latvia with more than 20 years experience in amphibian and reptile research. And Andris is currently working at the University of Latvia in Riga and University of Daugavpils in Latvia on the Life of Species project. So thank you, Andris. The floor is yours.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So my presentation will be more on legislation, so it maybe will not be as colorful because it's about a species list, so there will be more on the list side. So in the beginning, the basic information about the project is this is basically a Latvian only project with coordinating beneficiary is University of Latvia, but it also includes other universities and a nature conservation agency, which is national authority for all the main nature conservation things. The whole objectives for the whole projects basically were and are to develop drafts for national legislative amendments or new legislative drafts. It depends on the final outcome, which will be by the end of this year, to improve and the quality of the database, to increase the capacity of the governmental institutions and species habitat experts, and to increase the stakeholder involvement, raise awareness of the general public, which is in the form of the various seminars and workshops, both in person and online. The background is that the current national regulations are basically outdated. They are very old, and they were completed more than or around 20 years ago. And the other issues is that this list was not based on the red data list. No, actually it was based on red data list, but this list was not based on IUCN criteria. It was, this former list was developed by using old Soviet time red data book categories. And this, in Latvia, red data list has no legislative power, so it's not enough when you have red data list, you have to have some specific protected species list. And of course, during the time, much more scientific information have been accumulated, and also took place significant changes in Latvian economy. It started with overall decrease of economical activities in the 1990s after the collapse of the Soviet Union, and then gradual increase, and then basically some kind of boost for the Latvian economy after the joining the European Union. And the current protected species list of Latvia is not binding to European directive annex, is basically Habitat Directive or Bird Directive. So here is a summary of current protection of amphibian and species and reptiles in Latvia. As you can see, this list contains quite a lot of species, but only two middle columns represent actual lists with legislative power, and former red data book categories are listed in the right column, and also there are a lot of species, not a lot, but quite many species which are present in Habitat Directive annexes, but not in the protected species list. As you can see, this list contains also the 5-minute signal and 1-minute signal of our workshop. The overall project development is based on the new assessments, IUCN assessments, which is in Latvia have not previously been done, and with the following drafting, preparing drafts for the national legislations and also data sheets for public red data book. Here you can find the number of taxes selected for IUCN assessment. So, sorry, this project is not devoted only to the amphibians and reptiles, but it covers all the organism groups which could potentially be included in these protected species lists. And you can see that here are numbers of taxes just used for IUCN assessment. It doesn't mean that later all these taxes were included in the drafts for the protected species list. Amphibians and reptiles have the least number, but only 21 species, but they include all the species found in Latvia, including the common ones, relatively common ones. So, and step by step towards protected species list. First was red list training assessor workshop. It was done some years ago. Then IUCN initial assessments were made in 2022. These assessments were checked out and commented by external experts from the Swedish Agricultural University. This work was completed last year in March. Then followed these amendments were worked in the new assessment lists, and Latvian National Herpetologist Workshop and lots of local expert consensus were reached on this list some months later. Final assessments in June 2023, and then there are criteria for inclusion into protected species list, and this is quite a difficult task, not only because to develop such criteria is challenging, but also you have to take into account all the organism groups, including birds, which are very numerous, and invertebrates. And so basically, this protected species list criteria, you have to defend the interests of each expert, have to defend the interests of its own group. And this protected species list, so there is list developed, but these species which are in the list should be somehow ranked or arranged. And there are two directions, two groupings. One is for necessary conservation actions. Another is amount for the compensation for destruction. It means just how much have to pay as a compensation for destruction of the population, habitat, or individual. It depends on the species group. And final step, public workshop and submission to Ministry of Environment. It had to be completed yet. It's on the way now, and some amendments are still possible, but I don't think they will be connected to the amphibians and reptiles, more like to the species of the commercial interest. So here are IUCN assessment results. Basically, there are three categories which of the IUCN criteria, not criteria, categories which which are united into threatened species, and others are near threatened or extinct. So these are a bit different things. So basically, here is results. And number of assessed species are 13 for amphibians and 8 for reptiles. For reptiles, there are 2 data deficient species, Anguis colchica, Anguis fragus, which are relatively recently split into two species, and with very limited data for Latvia. And there are 2 charts on the left bottom. The left one is amphibians, right one reptile species. The green one are the amount of the species which are of least concern accordingly to these assessments. And so the reddier is the color, the more endangered this species, and so you can see that for reptiles are proportionally more in critically endangered species. And now we are coming to the criteria for the inclusion in the protected species list. I think it could be interesting for you. So basically, there are 4 groups of criteria, and each criteria have its own score. And to pass into the protected species list, the species had to have minimum passing score of 10. So there are first so-called mandatory group of criteria, which composed of only one criteria. Its inclusion in the internationally legally binding acts, so it means Habitat to Bird Directive annexes. So if you have species in this list, you automatically get them into the protected species list, and then you have most important is a group of B criteria, which includes IUCN assessments and also different kinds of their ecological traits. And next are the less important C criteria, which are mainly based on some historical values, socio-economical values, and have low scores. And then if the expert sees that everything is wrong, they can award them the D criteria and exclude species of the protected species list. It's more was necessary for plants and invertebrates, especially plants, because some plants may be found only in anthropogenical habitats, or they have escaped from the gardens, and so they may formally fulfill the many criteria and pass into the protected species list, but it would not be right. So for amphibians and reptiles, 4 groups of criteria, 6 amphibian and 3 reptile species are included in Habitat Directive annexes and also in threatened species categories. 5 amphibians more are least concerned by IUCN, but are included in Habitat Directives. And so all these species fit mandatory criteria in international legislative acts. So for the amphibians and reptiles, it was very easy to select species which should be included in the protected species list. Data deficient species, Anguissus pepe, did not qualify for protected species. And so in the total, we have classified 11 amphibian species and 3 reptile species, which were all based on A group criteria. As I understand, I'm the last one speaker, and the dinner is 7 o'clock. Yeah. Thank you. So, and it will continue like that. There will be no pictures, so many listings, many text. So, and these, you can also see that 11 amphibian species, or 87% from the total, should be included, and hopefully will be included in protected species list, which make this organism group as one of the most protected, perspectively one of the most protected organism groups in Latvia. And for reptile species, yes, only 3 species, but they are well represented. Oops. So here are the criteria for grouping into proposed conservation groups. So there are 4 groups. For first group, there is possibility to establish protected areas. For the second group, these are basically macro reserve species. Third group, regulated exploitation, and fourth is a protected species group with not site protection. The fourth group is in amphibian and reptile case for Latvia. It could be the group for the for instance, Morphrograna arvalis, Pelophyllum lessonae, which in Latvia are very common and included in the, but they are nevertheless included in the Habitat Directive Annex for species. So they formally should be well protected, but it's not right for the Latvia because, for instance, Pelophyllocles is found almost in every home yard pond. And here in the board you can see the criteria which fit some of these species, and in not both the criteria which did not fit. So especially interesting was opportunity in Latvia to establish micro reserves, which are established by a responsible authority and they are not needed very complicated legislation procedures. So it's basically established by responsible authority. Abbreviations mean National Nature Conservation Agency, State Forest Service, or Ministry of Agriculture. These could be up to 30 hectares, and these also can be Natura 2000 sites. And presently, 24 out of the about 2060 such micro-reserves are Natura 2000 sites, but these 2060, they are not amphibian and reptile micro-reserves. They are mostly established for birds and for invertebrates or habitats. To have a better understanding for us when to use such a micro-reserves, they should not necessarily be established for every threatened species or amphibian or reptile records. They should be established on the key sites to sustain regional populations. For instance, they are also necessary for restored amphibian breeding sites because in many cases, or maybe in all cases, you will not get the financial support for the conservation works if they are placed outside some kind of protected area. And in Latvia, we usually have some mandatory requirements to keep these sites as at least some time after the finishing of the project as functioning for the amphibian and reptile protection. And typically no intervention regime is necessary, which it's how they differ from the micro-reserves for many other organism groups, which, for instance, birds, they do need, in most cases, some no intervention, no trouble making, especially in the breeding time. And each should have separate regulation for permitted and forbidden actions. It's not necessary by the legislation, but it's very strongly welcomed. So, and here is some overlook for the responsible institutions for the different goods what we get for the nature protections. And the most important is a column with the final decisions. You can see that some types of actions, for instance, establishing of new natural reserves or national parks are very complicated because they should be voted in the parliament, which nowadays I don't think could pass. In many other cases, it's much more easier. In micro-reserves, they depend on what type of the micro-reserves they are. For instance, in the forest lands, outside protected areas, they can be established by the State Forest Service, and for fish spawning grounds by the Ministry of Agriculture, and in all the other cases by National Conservation Agency. So briefly, also the second classifications or grouping of the species included in the protected species list should be such as there could be first, second, and third group, and which also inclusion in one or other group depends on how threatened these species are and what is a combination of IUCN category and habitat directive, placement in the habitat directive annexes, and also the EU Article 17 report is also been taken into account, because it's, maybe you don't know, but it's a bit different report, and this it's not based on IUCN criteria. This report is being submitted by the member states once in the 6 years. And again, some species are not included in these groups at all, and these are quite, not quite, but these are the most common amphibian species. So here is basically the summary, where you can see the three kinds of houses, just like in the fairy tale about Three Little Pigs. And the strongest house is on the top. It just like built from the stone. It includes species which are rare and also in Latvia, and also included in the directives. And so then there are next group, 2 houses, small cottage that is built from the twigs and branches, and the last house is built from the grasses and straws, but species that live in these house are quite strong and can live outside basically. So, and the take-home message: LIFE program is effective and powerful tool for independent professional extinction risk evaluation, and having an algorithm and definite criteria for inclusion in the protected species list helps to update these legally binding regulations in the way that ensure prompt reaction to rapidly changing environment. Thank you for your time and for your patience. I'm finished.
Thank you, Andres. Thank you for sharing this example from Latvia. How defining this criteria for species protection can sort of help shape regulation for herpetofauna species. I think we should all give a really, really big thank you to our speakers, because it's a bit of a tough slot to have at the end of the day, and you've managed really, really well. So before we go to questions, I think we should just give them all a really, really big clap. Thank you so much. And so now, to inject some energy into the room, do we have any questions for any of our 4 panelists that you're burning to ask? And if not, I have thought of some myself. One from the front. Okay, yes. We got a microphone handy somewhere. Yes, this one's coming. Great. Just one at the front here. Thanks.
Hello.
Right. Oh, is it pushed up? Hold it very close, maybe.
Hello. Okay, my question is for Ricardo. I would like to ask you just a little detail, not much. The criteria for selecting the species, the invasive species of union concern, and what are the chances of this list to be increased with so many species we have in different places?
Thank you for the question. I don't know if I should reply or the Commission. No, just kidding. Well, the criteria for listing or for assessing them is the Commission financed, before the listing, financed an horizon scanning exercise. So, together with a number of experts, we did a workshop, a consensus workshop, where we score, let's say, we score for likelihood of introduction, of impact, or blah, 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 for actually many hundreds of species. Then we came out with a short list of kind of 200, etc. So this was a first step. Another step we did at the very early start, so the very first list was made basically on risk assessments already available, actually in GB, in Great Britain, or risk assessment made for plants by EPO, the European Plant Protection Organization. So we started from those risk assessments already available. We looked at which information gaps were there in order to make them suitable and qualified for being taken, let's say, to the scientific forum. I mean, I didn't speak about all the process, it's very complex. But anyway, so basically, the first list was made on risk assessment already available that were, let's say, compliant to the regulation, because the regulation requires a number of data being present in the risk assessment to be taken into account. And the other updates were done on the basis of this horizon scanning exercise that provided a short list of species to be prioritized for risk assessment. Doesn't mean that they are, if they are there, they will be then listed, of course. The risk assessment might also provide, let's say, a low risk as a result, so they will be just dropped, like it did happen actually for Chrysamis picta. Chrysamis picta is a species that we risk assessed, and the risk assessment, let's say, provided evidence, or at least didn't provide evidence of any high risk. Therefore, the species was not listed anymore. It is still on the wildlife trade regulation, so nothing changes actually. It can still not be traded. But and now, after 10 years, nearly 10 years, I don't remember exactly, we are doing a new horizon scanning exercise because we were running short of options. So there will be a new list. Regarding the chance of the list being updated, this is also a political decision because there are many risk assessments already done with species that result high risk, but member states already feel, and well, take these words, I'm not inside the process of the political process, so I don't know exactly, but let's say member states already felt they had too much challenge, so they postponed the approval of this list to, let's say, the next months. So there is a list, I think, about 30 species that are being discussed currently. And we don't know, actually, when and if it will be ever approved. Other species are being risk assessed currently. Therefore, the list is expected to grow. But of course, this is also a political decision. Sorry, it made the story a bit long, but it's even longer.
Thank you. Thanks for your question. Are there any more questions from the room? There's one at the back. Marie, yeah? Yeah?
Maybe I'm able to speak without this.
Yeah.
Thank you. I would like to ask about financing for life projects in the context of maximum funding amount rates, because when I am looking at the species list that is presented under the Habitats Directive and the web tool for species assessments under Article 17, so I see differences in the species list. So please, why? What's more important for the decision about amount rates?
So maybe that question is for you, Frank. Yeah?
No, actually, that is the question whether a project can receive 75% co-funding or not.
Yes, of course.
And in fact, there is several criteria. And as soon as you comply with one of the criteria, even if you don't comply with the others, you can ask for 75%. So there is no hierarchy between the criteria. So it could be on the basis of the priority status of a species or habitat in an annex of the Habitats Directive, Annex 1 or Annex 2 as priority species and habitats. It could be the latest assessment under Article 17, so it must be unfavorable bet and minus, both at the national biogeographical level and at the biogeographical region level, so it is an EU assessment. This looks a bit constraining, but in fact, if we would not have this double condition, almost every species would be entitled to 75%. So somehow we had to prioritize some there. And then the third one is for the birds. In fact, for the birds, there is a different approach because there is a list of species that was adopted by the committee of a birds directive, which ranks, well, basically it lists all the species that are considered as priority for life funding, and that can be updated. I mean, if we have new data with the next report, but I think it's rather to be updated every 10 or 15 years. And then the last criterion, it's the IUCN, it's the European red list. So if you have a species group, or also for the habitats, where there is a red list available, and that is the case nowadays for most groups. There's a few exceptions that we miss, in particular marine species and some invertebrates and some plants. Well, in any case, if it's falling under EU red list, and you see that the species in the red list is assessed as endangered, so it must be higher than vulnerable, endangered or worse, even if all the other criteria are not met, then it's also 75%. And this means also that species that are not covered by the Birds and Habitats Directive can receive 75% funding. There is one condition, again, because otherwise we would again have every project 75%, is that really all the actions in the project should be targeting those species that qualify as a priority species or habitat. So, I mean, it's extremely wide nowadays, perhaps too wide, but there is still people that are unhappy because there is always a situation that falls under the, I mean, we had this interesting discussion about a dormouse, which is severely declining in Eastern Europe and not at all in Western Europe. I think it would be totally understandable to have it as a priority for funding in an Eastern European country. But okay, it's not in the Habitats Directive, there is only the IUCN assessment, and I don't know what the latest status is because the IUCN mammal assessment is being updated. So if in the next round it would be endangered or worse, then it would be 75%, but unfortunately, if it's not endangered or worse, and if it remains below that threshold, it's not eligible for 75%. So this is a bit, it's not a perfect system, but I think it's offering a lot of solutions. The problem with a 75% rate is that nowadays most of the projects receive 75%. And when you have 75% for every project, it means that the total amount of co-funding is 25%. So if all the projects would receive 60, the total amount of co-funding would be much higher, and the total output of a program would be much bigger. So it's a delicate balance. It's also political. We have a lot of pressure, even more projects than for 75%, but yeah, that's the situation. Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Frank, for jumping in there. One more question, and then I think that will probably be the last one. If we can pass the microphone. Oh, you've got a microphone. Great.
I have it. If I could perhaps even, it's a bit of a question that connects to the previous one. Okay. We would also like to strengthen the Natura 2000 by adding stepping stone locations. However, the locations do have the targeted species and the habitats of life. They are present. But is it possible to include locations that are not a part of the Natura 2000 and still get the full funding?
So quite specific questions.
It's a bit specific because we haven't been able
the
to. The
75% funding is linked to the target species or habitat. So even if it's an action outside, the project would still be entitled to 75%. The question is more, does it make sense, or is it a value for money to invest into areas that have no protection status? But this is not a question for the co-funding rate. It's more a question about let's say, the merits of a project. I think, in principle, this should be possible. Perhaps the project would be lower ranked than a project where, let's say, there is a better guarantee for the long-term sustainability, but it certainly wouldn't be excluded for that reason.
Thanks very much. I think we're all getting a bit hungry. So yeah, thanks again very much to the speakers today, and also, well, to all of you for your active participation. It's been a really full-on day, but really insightful and really great to have everyone's key messages brought through those presentations. And we hope it's laid some foundations and inspiration for discussions in the working groups tomorrow. So just for, we'll just sort of draw a close to today's meeting for our online audience, so we can sign off with them. Thanks again to them for being with us today remotely, and hopefully next time we'll see you in person. So for everyone else.